Welcome everyone. This is Andres Restart. This is possibly the last stream of the year, but I wouldn't be shocked if I do another one. We shall see. But this is going to be one of the biggest streams of the year because we're doing our Nintendo in 2024 predictions, and we have a larger cast than usual, and it may even be larger than what it is now by the end of the stream. So here at the top right, I have Daddy Jake.
What's
Hello.
up?
How you doing, man?
Good to see you. I see a lot of familiar names in chat. Good to see the chat, and it's good to be on Andres' channel, where I will be keeping it clean.
You can keep it mostly clean. You can be a little. You can be
I'll
a little
keep the water
rough
like
around the edges. Yeah. So guys, Jake and I know each other because we both go on Nintendo Prime's channel. We're now good buddies. But this is the first time he's been on my channel, and Jake has his own YouTube channel where he talks about things and is known for some pretty darn big live streams. So you should definitely check him out. His channel is linked in the description below, and also if you what Jake does a really good job of is keeping us updated on hardware, especially with some of those Sony devices that apparently some people play.
I mean, also Nintendo devices, Switch OLED, like
when Nintendo
like
announces them,
Switches, Amiibos. Basically, if I'm like interested in it and I want to buy it for myself, I'll just like track it relentlessly till like everyone gets one.
What if we get like
Portal was the big one recently, but now I'm taking a break because after Christmas I'm like burnt out. So now it's like rest mode.
Hopefully you can wait like at least 2 weeks before Nintendo announces the
Nintendo
DS Lite OLED. That's
sir.
That's not a tease for one of my predictions later tonight.
You can tease me all you want.
Or is it? All right, well, there we go. So that's Jake. And in the bottom right, returning is Paul Gale from Paul Gale Network. How you doing, buddy?
Very good. It's been a good week so far. Enjoying my vacation time officially.
Nice.
Yeah, catching up, playing some games on the backlog, and lightsaber battles in the backyard with my kids. So it's been cool.
That's why I want to have kids so I can duel them and just beat them and be the goal for them that they're going to try to attain someday. It'll take them 40, 50 years, but they'll get there someday. I believe in them.
Well,
but
like Mario Kart or something, you can't let them win just too easily.
I'll never go easy on them. They got to earn it. Yeah. But guys, Paul Gale, pretty cool dude. You mentioned a book to me earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Oh yeah, it's conveniently right there next to the R-Wing.
I actually didn't know about it until you mentioned it today.
One of my possible predictions or hopes. Oh yeah, I wrote a children's book, and it's out there in the world. So it's not necessarily video game related, but something kind of cool. Although I'll say it does have something video game related in it. It's just not a gaming book. It's a book good for kids or possibly adults. A book about a dog that gets taken in by a young boy and his family and is told from the dog's perspective and stuff like that. So it's called Lisek's Great Adventure. If anybody's ever interested.
Where can we find this book?
Amazon, Borders, Walmart, eBay, kind of anywhere. Kindle.
Sorry, what was the title, real quick? Again,
I'll write it right here. It's Lisek's Great Adventure.
Lisek?
Yeah, Lisek. Lisek means little fox in Polish. There's a reason why that's the title too, but yeah.
So where can we find this book?
Amazon's probably the best place.
Okay.
Usually the cheapest and easiest accessible, since a lot of people already have Amazon. But yeah, thank you.
No, I am interested, but I'm also interested in what you teased earlier. Before we went live, you said you were looking up some numbers. You mentioned numbers and Nintendo. I get excited. Like I'm very much interested in what you have to bring to the table today. I'm extremely curious.
All right.
Yeah, but also we got someone who hasn't been on for a while. So for those of you who've been watching the podcast for a couple years, you may be familiar with Cameron from Game Bird Classic, who started putting out his own podcast recently. You're getting back into the swing of things. How you doing, buddy? Can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Can't hear you.
I said, let's start over. I'm back, baby.
There we go.
Glad to be. I was actually
He's
testing
back.
you guys. That was completely on purpose. But no, yeah, it's been a while. I'm super stoked to be here. Excited to chat Nintendo for 2024. What may come. But yeah, it's been a little while. I had a lot of stuff going in. I had a big move, a lot of big changes. So I kind of didn't have content going on for a little while. I'm back now putting out Nintendo content. My channel is a Nintendo focused channel, but I started a new kind of podcast every Friday called Game Bird Weekly. And that's more just all things gaming, still with a little bit of an emphasis on Nintendo in that show. But that once a week show is kind of covering Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, and maybe some of the other industry stuff going on. But yeah, feel free to check me out if you like Nintendo, which if you're watching this podcast, I assume you do.
Yeah. I would think so. I was actually watching your show earlier, and I saw you were talking about Ocarina of Time remake, and I was like, oh, a fellow believer. All right.
Oh, it's coming, dude. It's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and just a heads up, I don't have a Game Bird Weekly episode coming out tomorrow. It's on Fridays. I'm taking a break for the new year. But if you guys want to check out my last episode, like Andres just said, me and my buddy, we talk about a possible Ocarina of Time remake, thoughts on that, as well as some of those rumors in regards to a Smash movie. And we have a lot of fun with the Smash movie discussion because we kind of talk about things that we would like to see in a Nintendo cinematic universe leading up to what would be a penultimate Smash finale, if you will.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. And in the nick of time, our final guest, I'll just pop her in now. Josie Woe, also first time on the channel. Long time coming. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well.
Jake's not doing well, but he'll be fine.
What are you talking about? I'm fine.
Are you?
Yeah, why?
Remember, you got to keep it clean.
Oh, yeah. No,
I mean, not that clean.
Go back to Josie, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah.
Hey, Mr. Woe, if you're watching tonight.
Not again.
No, we're slightly cleaner on this on my channel, a little bit. So although with Jake here, I can't guarantee because it's Jake's first time, but it's also Josie's first time. She makes some really, really awesome, fun YouTube videos. Most of the time about Nintendo, but about gaming in general. I'm honestly happy to have you on. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you. I'm also very happy to be on. I've liked your stuff for a very long time, so I'm glad we get to do this for sure.
Cool. And Josie, I don't know if you've met Cameron from Game Bird Classic, but Cameron, Josie.
Hello.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, and have you met Paul before?
I don't think so.
Nice to meet you, though.
What's up, Paul?
Josie. Yeah. Awesome. So everyone's channels and social media are linked in the description below, guys. Please check them all out. They're all amazing. I wouldn't have them on here otherwise. And tonight I thought we could talk about Nintendo in 2024. But before we do that, I do want to do a little bit of kind of talking about 2023, just kind of our overall thoughts on that. It's a little bit of like an appetizer, right? And then I'll check in with the chat, guys. If you can let me know how everything is looking and sounding for a few minutes, and then we'll jump into the bulk of the discussion, and then at the end we'll do a little bit of focus Q&A, and that's the basic plan for the evening. So, with that said, guys, by the way, feel free to interrupt me. We're not. Don't just sit there quiet waiting awkwardly. Like, talk over me, be free, feel comfortable. We're good to go. But with that all said, let's just jump into our mini appetizer topic. Nintendo's 2023. How do we feel about it?
It was pretty great. Pretty good stuff.
I love it.
Kingdom? Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Cam.
I was just gonna say, I think this is my favorite year of the Switch. So many good games. We had over I want to say 10 Nintendo exclusives come out this year, so it's pretty much something great to play. I know not all of them were Tears of the Kingdom or Mario Wonder Caliber, but literally something to play practically every month. Got a lot of my favorite series, Zelda, Mario, we got Pikmin, a lot of good stuff sprinkled in between that. Fire Emblem game. I can't think of a better Nintendo year in recent memory, at least. So for me, this was A+, 10 out of 10, especially when you think about Switch possibly being on its last year to year and a half.
Yeah, I agree. I like loved this year, and I think it was like just because we got like I think sort of a repeat of 2017, but in a new way. Like we got the big Mario, we got the big Zelda, but it was like I don't know. I just thought it was fun and maybe a little bit more catered to me. I really like 2D platformers, so I was really excited for Wonder, and I've been a big Pikmin person for a while as well, so that was just really exciting. And I think like it stands toe to toe with 2017, if not like for me personally, a little bit edging over. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I think
it's
you can't really talk about like how good this year was for Nintendo without like acknowledging that it was so good for gaming as a whole. That like it amplified, like, you know what I mean, like it enhanced Nintendo, because like say there was a month when you weren't interested in the Nintendo release, chances are there was something else you were going to play. So I think that like I think Nintendo on its own, this might have been the best year for Switch. There was a couple others besides 2017 that I really liked actually, but when you combine it with all the other like great games that came out this year, I mean this was probably, I mean, what a great last year probably for Switch to be the only console.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like just thinking about it. Like, it's hard for me to say if this is like the best Switch year. 'Cause 2017 to me just seems kind of like so legendary. But like, I almost kind of want to go back to like the second half of 2021. Like, we got things like Metroid Dread, for example, and then in 2022 we got Legends Arceus, then Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Splatoon 3. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and then this year we got the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the best expansion of the year, by the way. We got the DLC for Pokemon, which is pretty fun. A lot of people are enjoying it. But we also had like just great games coming out throughout the year. We opened up with Fire Emblem Engaged and the Kirby game, Metroid Prime Remastered, the best remaster of all time. I don't feel like I'm exaggerating when I say that. Well, it's pretty damn good. Let's just say
a lot of people feel that way, dude. You're not. That's not a stretch.
It's really good. And we got Advance Wars finally, and then Tears of the Kingdom. Obviously, that's like a megaton of all megatons. But yeah, I think we sleep on Pikmin 4. Like, it's. I mean, not everyone's sleeping on it because the sales are pretty good though. Last I checked, I think they were like at 2.6, and so I could see that hitting 3+, right? Which puts it like in the puts it past like the Xenoblade level, and it puts it like in the upper echelon of Fire Emblem games. And so, like, in terms of like non-Mario, Pokemon, Zelda, Nintendo games, like I think that's like a pretty good number. But I'm curious, like, how much more it's gonna do over time.
Yeah, I don't know if it has like crazy legs. That's the only thing. Like, I feel like a lot of people who bought Pikmin and were excited about it probably already bought it. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case, but
True.
But yeah, and it's not like they're
you
gonna
and I
release
keep
stuff
talking about
later.
it though. Yeah. Well, actually, what do you think? I guess that it's kind of going into
like them releasing Pikmin 1 and DLC. 2, I think that could have legs because people are like, oh, like this is on Switch now. Sure. Maybe they impulse buy it and they try the series, and then that helps Pikmin 3 and 4. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and then I also think they're already working. They confirmed on Pikmin 5, and they have been for like months.
Yeah, they don't want to be
that's going to be a Switch 2 game, and hopefully that'll help out. You know, have people want to play Pikmin 4 before that comes out. So I am hopeful that Pikmin can have like a little bit of legs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like when we get later sales numbers how Pikmin does over the holiday season. I mean, I think there's justification to make for Pikmin being a Game of the Year nominee title. It reviewed extremely well, and I think Nintendo put a lot of really cool mechanics into this new Pikmin game to make it more appealing to the mainstream. A little bit of RPG mechanics. They changed up the camera perception from being isometric to more of a third person. You know, it's a little bit more forgiving with your time constraints. So I think, I don't know, I think that this has a chance to get a little bit of a holiday boost, and who knows, maybe word of mouth will push it a little further next year as well.
Let's keep talking about Pikmin 4 because it's really good.
Oh wait, I do have one thing. When I was talking about getting legs, maybe this was just me and I made the assumption. I meant I thought you were meant like evergreen sales, like continuing to sell year after year. Is that what you're talking about? Because that's what I was talking about.
I
Just
mean,
me?
I think that's one of those things that's hard to gauge until we see what
Yeah.
happens. You know,
Mhm.
In
That's
Japan,
why I was bringing up like Pikmin 5 and stuff. Like,
I think with Pikmin 5 now, some people are gonna go back and play Pikmin 4 for sure.
right.
But
right,
will
right.
Pikmin 4 have steady sales between now and then? Because that could be 3 years from now,
Mhm.
you know, or even more.
Yeah, and
Um,
also the thing about them like feeding into each other, I think if nothing else, like people will probably pick up Pikmin 4 first, play that because it's
Mhm.
like the new exciting Pikmin game, and
Yeah.
then since we have the rest of the backlog on the Switch, like it's like, oh, I can just play the whole series now, and I think that'll feed into some sales of 1 and 2 and maybe 3 Deluxe, but I don't know if those necessarily translate to Pikmin 4 because there was such a long wait and build up to it, you know?
Yeah.
yeah,
I also feel like there's gonna be people that start with 5, and they're like, "Oh, this was awesome," but it was like it was too short for me, and then everyone the discourse is gonna be like, "Oh, you need to play Pikmin 4 if you didn't play that." So I mean I think it'll
Oh
I
yeah,
think it'll sell more.
down the road for sure. In a couple of years,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
that's what
for
I mean.
sure. Yeah.
its tail is looking good though. I mean, at least Japan, if that's a little bit of an indication of how the rest of the world's doing. I'm just looking at the Famitsu charts from last week, and it's still hanging in there in the top of the charts every week, top 5. Not that that
Mhm.
represents the rest of the world completely, but it's a good base of, hey, this game is still popular in this region. You could look at the eShop charts, you could look at the Amazon charts, and you can still see Pikmin, hanging in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if, come February 8th or so, Nintendo has an update on Pikmin and the numbers are a few 100,000 more have sold, whereas some previous Pikmin titles kind of fell off the cliff after the first 6 weeks. So this one's
Mhm.
got a decent slope to it. Um,
Did someone
better than
say at
Metroid
the
Prime
beginning of
sold.
this what the total sales are so far that have been reported?
I think of either the last like official updates at 2.6.
Okay.
That
That's
I
sounds
feel like
bad.
that's pretty great for a Pikmin game, honestly.
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
I
after
agree.
September
I
30th.
Yeah.
And,
I want to add too, and this is why I mentioned kind of like holidays. I'm curious to see if holidays will give
oh yeah,
Pikmin a boost. We talked about earlier, like what a crazy year this was, not just for Nintendo, but for the whole industry with the number of big releases we had this year. Pikmin is definitely one of those games. Well, I love Pikmin. It's one of my favorite Nintendo series. I'm sure for a lot of people, they're going to want the big titles. They're going to want the Zelda, the Mario, the Alan Wake, the Starfields, all those other games that got the big nominations, Spider-Man. People might be like, I want these ones now at release, but I'll ask for Pikmin for Christmas, or that'll be something I'll pick up at the end of the year once I get through these like big juggernaut titles.
Maybe Nintendo sees it as a Christmas title too, because they've been putting out multiple like little renditions of like the holiday Pikmin scene. Like they had a
Yeah.
like commercial for it, then they put out the art,
Mhm.
which I love. Not Mario, not Zelda, Pikmin. That's their Christmas game, folks. And
It's funny how implemented Pikmin is in like Nintendo. Like even when it wasn't no big games were coming out, like Miyamoto was like, "Oh, Pikmin Bloom. Oh, there's Pikmin all over the park." It's like it feels to me
Mhm.
like the love there is always going to be there. So I think it gives me hope that we're hopefully going to get a Pikmin 5 as long as this one keeps selling as well as it has been.
yeah, it's interesting because I think Pikmin, right? We're really spending a lot of time on Pikmin. Like we haven't even touched Mario Wonder, but there's just something about Pikmin that I think it's kind of like shows you like the essence of Nintendo, right? Like they have this really unique like way of playing a game, and it has so much polish and kind of magic behind it. Like you play Pikmin 4 and you're like, that's a Nintendo game.
Yeah,
Dude,
a lot of charm.
I might be
Yeah.
going off the rails with this, so feel free to reel me in. But like, it's almost not like the gameplay and the genre is completely different, but it almost is similar to Zelda in a way, and that like you have to explore everything and you have to like do trial and error with everything to figure stuff out. You know what I mean? Which is kind of like what you have to do to like solve a dungeon in Zelda. Because when you
It's-
first enter a new area, you have like no idea what certain things do. I mean, if you have knowledge from past games, it's fair, but you have no idea like how they're gonna act with what items, and it's just like a lot of just experimenting.
Yeah, I would say that Pikmin 4, alongside Tears of the Kingdom, alongside Mario Odyssey as well, Breath of the Wild, a lot of these like core EPD Nintendo developed games, like they they have a lot of critical thinking moments. Like there's a lot of environmental puzzles, and they do kind of get you to think outside the box, which I would say it's a little bit different. It's not that other games aren't like that, but most games kind of fit into a certain like genre, right? And it's kind of like just slightly different. Like these games feel very different from any prior other entry. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild feel very similar, but even with Tears of the Kingdom, which we haven't really talked about that much because I feel like we've talked about it all year. But with Tears of the Kingdom, like you have all these mechanics, they kind of force you to rethink how you play Zelda. And so to me, that's interesting because I remember when I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, there's like the first few hours, it's almost like your brain's kind of like reshaping a little bit just to kind of appropriately understand what you can do in the game. And so I think it's a strong point in the game, but I'll also argue that not everyone wants to play like that, right? Some people don't really want to think. And so some people don't take advantage of a sense. Some people don't take advantage of Ultra
The other thing is, dude, like for Breath of the Wild, I've told you this before. Like when I played it the first time, I did not like it, and I put it down. And it was 2 years later that I came back, and when I played it that time, I got like obsessed because I was like in the hospital for 2 weeks. So all I did was play that game every single day, and it was awesome. With it. Like, I'll never forget it. But the reason I didn't like it at first is because honestly, in Breath of the Wild in particular, the tutorial for me is like the worst part of the game because I'm feeling overwhelmed the more stuff it shows me. I'm feeling like I'm not playing the way the game wants me to. Like I'm not like being creative enough with how I kill enemies and stuff. And my weapons are breaking. And like just like the first few hours you're doing that. And I think that's like probably the weakest part of Breath of the Wild is the intro. Even though you're building stuff, it takes a little while to have that click. At least it did for me, and I think some people had similar experiences where they didn't like that, but unlike me, they never came back to it. And like those are the people, a lot of them, I mean, sure, a lot of them probably beat the game, but I think a lot of them just like got burnt out at the very beginning and got overwhelmed, and they're like, nope, like I want to go back to traditional Zelda, like this is so bad. Because you keep hearing the same thing, like the weapons breaking, like all that stuff. Like I don't want to play to be creative, which was stuff I was just feeling naturally when I played it the first time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I had actually a similar experience because I like when this game came out, I hadn't really had almost any like Breath of the Wild. I hadn't had any real experience with an open world, and then playing Breath of the Wild was like kind of overwhelming because I was like, what am I really supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? Like the sense of no direction kind of freaked me out. And I similarly put it down. I didn't pick it up 2 years later, but I think I picked it up like at like the end of 2017 and finished it and got really into it once again, like you said. But it really took me a while to understand that this is a different type of game and I need to put myself in this mindset to play this other type of game that I was not anticipating. Because the only other Zelda game I'd played before that was Wind Waker, and that's very different.
Yeah, I think that like for me, before I played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, my favorite Zelda game was Ocarina of Time. And for me, the biggest difference was that Ocarina of Time hooked me in immediately, and I was having so much fun. Breath of the Wild, like I said, took me so long to get to the point where I'm having fun, but the difference is the maximum amount of fun I had in Breath of the Wild was more than the maximum amount of fun that I had in Ocarina of Time. Like once you get into it, it's so good. It's just not one of those games where it happens that way right at the beginning, and that's okay. Like if a game's as good as that one is, it's okay if there's some build up to it.
Yeah. I remember Breath of the Wild, like just kind of like the color cues, like the orange shrines, right? You kind of like see those. They stick out from all the green. And so you kind of like go there, right? Like that's kind of like how they did it. But the interesting thing about Breath of the Wild, to kind of like Josie's point, is like you start the game, you're just not sure where you want to go. And so you just kind of have to pick. And then you go there and you have this idea, oh, I'm going to go towards the desert. But you end up going to like the opposite side instead because you continually get distracted with other things. And Tears of the Kingdom is kind of a lot like that too, but it's kind of like a fresher take on it. But before we kind of jump into a little bit of Q&A stuff and then getting into our major topic, we talk about Tears of the Kingdom, we talk about Pikmin 4. We at least mentioned Prime Remastered, it's the GOAT. But we got to talk about Mario Wonder. Like, that game's pretty good too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nice surprise.
Dude, I didn't play it yet.
Oh,
Really?
you
In a
gotta play
very
it.
small window of time from when Nintendo showed it off to.
I have it like right
Yeah.
next to me too. It's actually on the ground. But
It's
I have
so good.
There you
That
go.
is like my second favorite game of the year, actually. Over like that and Pikmin are my two favorites, and I love Tears of the Kingdom as well, obviously. But I had so much fun. I played that game through 6 times, and then I played it twice all the way through in co-op. Like I just feel like the
Wow.
way it implements all these different things, it's just so fun. Like I haven't really been that addicted to a game in a really long time, and I just like I just every time I beat it, I was like, great, time to restart, do the whole thing again. I got like 100%. I did everything, and I'm not 100%er. I've only ever 100%ed 2 other games in my life, so it was I don't know what it was, but I loved it.
No, yeah, Mario Wonder's good. The way you feel about Mario Wonder is the way I felt about Metroid Dread. I played through that game several times over, 100% it multiple times. Like I remember, I had a different job at the time, but it was a job where I was working from home. And I just had to take calls, and so I already beat Metroid Dread a couple times, but there's like a boss rush mode, and so I would just be taking calls, and I would just be literally like trying to complete survival, and it was just insane. But I loved Mario Wonder. I 100% it. And I kind of feel I usually 100% Mario games. It's kind of for me. That's like kind of like my thing. Like, always want to get to like that final super secret level, which is usually really good. But I almost want to say that this Mario Wonder is maybe the best 2D Mario ever. And maybe some of that is just because, obviously modern technology, right? Like, so maybe it's not the best 2D Mario relative to its time, but like if I had to pick one 2D Mario to play, I would pick Mario Wonder. Like it's just fun. There's so much variety, and I remember there's a lot of talk about like the online play when Nintendo was they weren't telling us much about it, right? They were kind of leading us to believe there wasn't much there, and then once they fully detailed it, I was like, oh, you know what? This is actually better than we were led to believe.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Why'd they make it seem like it was not good? It seems like not smart.
Yeah, I remember there was like we had like a whole conversation about it on this podcast, and people were like pissed, and I was
Yeah.
like, and then it came out that it was actually really really good. I was like, Nintendo, you guys just absolutely screwed it up right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think my favorite 2D Mario of all time has always been Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. I think it's a perfect game. I still rate it as one of the greatest games ever made to this day. One of the things I really, really love about Super Mario World is the amount of secrets that they incorporated into that game. Secret paths, secret levels, a lot of really cool stuff there. And then Mario Wonder came out, and I'm like, man, this might finally, after all these decades, dethrone Super Mario World. And I go back and forth. I'm not sure which one I like. On any given day, it might be Mario World, it might be Wonder. But I will say, I absolutely love what Nintendo did with Wonder, and they made so many clever decisions with this game. Eliminating the time limit on levels is huge. Being able to kind of explore freely and play at your own pace was a huge thing. I think the multiplayer mode in it with that kind of Dark Souls, like you see the ghosts of other online players and you could help each other out, is so cool. It's so unique. And it makes me think of Nintendo's really experimented with a lot of innovation in their big IPs recently. And I think they've seen great success, whether it's Zelda or Mario or Fire Emblem with Three Houses, kind of experimenting a little bit more of the, persona, social part of the gameplay. We saw it with Pikmin with the new camera perspective and more RPG mechanics and gearing out your character. So I'm expecting, with the great success they've seen in innovating on their big IPs, we're going to see more of that leading into 2024 with game announcements, as well as Switch's successor. And I'm really excited to see what Nintendo has up their sleeve with the next big 3D Mario, because I think with the success of Zelda and Mario Wonder kind of experimenting, I think they're gonna go big with the next Mario game. But I just thought I'd add that in there with this conversation, because it has been a trend of them doing these weird, breaking conventions and doing things they've never done before. So I'm excited for the future.
Mhm.
Are you okay,
I think-
Andre?
It's just Cameron's still doing such a great job to kind of set up all right, now time to get into the predictions, right? So But I did
What
say
I
did say I would do a little bit of Q&A. So Verum Verbi actually asked me to show Ruby. So I'm gonna take a moment to fetch Ruby. One of you say something silly. I'll be back in 10 seconds.
What's your favorite slang word, Jake?
Ooh.
I like
Slang word.
dog, but DAWG. I think it's kind of vibes.
Dog.
Yeah, but I also say
Ooh.
vibes a lot, so I think that is my
I
slang
like
word of
home
choice.
slice. Like, what up, home slice?
Okay,
Home
But
slice.
that's
Okay.
from my childhood, you know?
pretty good one.
There
Paul.
you go.
I use dope quite a bit.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty dope.
That is pretty dope.
Stuck
That's
with me.
literally very dope.
Pretty dope.
Yeah, mine is rad. To echo kind of off of Paul there, I've been saying
You ever
rad
go the
since
full
I was a kid.
radical or just
Never
rad?
radical. It's always
Never.
That's too surfer.
that game is
Whoa.
rad.
Super
Yeah, that
rad.
movie was rad last
Oh,
night.
it's like the saw dude.
Radical.
Like radical, like retired and had a baby, and the baby was saw dude, and that's what's taken over.
I showed her for a moment. She didn't feel like hanging out too much. She was sleeping. Ruby,
It was a glorious moment.
hey, come. Look at the marker. She's just staring at me. She's like, I'm sleepy. Leave me alone. She may come back later. But there, I did fetch Ruby. I kept my promise. What silly things did you guys talk about to make fun of me?
Yeah.
The words that we use to describe you.
We all went around
Dope.
taking turns on what we guessed you smelled like in person.
I said dope.
I
I said
good.
weed.
I take showers and not much of a smoker. So
Good call.
yeah. I'm not saying you can. I'm just saying it's not really much of a me thing.
I bet
But,
you smell exactly like Harry Styles. That's what I'm gonna choose.
I don't know who that. I smell
You
like a
don't.
clean
Wait, you
person.
don't know who that is?
I smell like a clean person. No, I don't
Bro.
know. Who's Harry Styles? He's a famous person I should know.
Yeah. He's a singer.
Oh,
Like
okay.
the most famous guy.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
well-
like Taylor Swift, but guy version.
Yeah, but
Oh
male.
yeah, I vaguely recognize his face. I googled him. I mean, if he played his music, I'd probably be like, oh, okay, sure.
You'd know the
and
music.
he was in One Direction.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well,
Wow,
now
you
you guys
learned
know.
something today.
You learned something about me. Well, at least according to me, I smell good, but I also know nothing about music, unless it's Nintendo music. But we got a super chat here from Taker610 on the note of music. Taker says, "World's music is better than Wonder's music."
Dude, that was great timing.
Right?
I'll second that. I gotta say the theme to Super Mario World to this day is fire. It still holds.
Oh, it held up really well.
It is iconic.
I like the way the music is implemented in Wonder though. Like the Wonder Flowers and when the little piranhas are singing at you, like that's so cool.
That is great.
That's what
And
I
then
heard.
if you kill them, like it's out of tune. It's like it's really, really cool. But I mean, I guess classically, yes, World is probably better.
I do think you bring a good point though, Josie, because like the music in Wonder, there's a lot of variance to it. It's dynamic. It changes depending on what you do in the world. Like when you transform to Elephant Mario, there's like extra like trombones or something in the background. Like it changes based off what you're doing in the world. Like so you can play the level and depending on how you play it sounds different. And I don't want to spoil too much, but there is a little thing you can get later on into the like it's like an end game sort of like reward that you can. It kind of encourages you to go back through the game because you can kind of hear things a little bit differently, and it's kind of neat. So they definitely had music in mind there. But if we're just talking about like the scores, it's tough for me because Mario Wonder is iconic, but I actually think there's some really good ones. I mean, Mario World is iconic. Mario Wonder, that remains to be seen, but there are some good ones that I put in some of my videos that I'm like, hey, this kind of slaps. So
Totally.
Yeah, they're both good for different reasons. So next super chat here, Attack the Backlog. Thank you very much for that super chat. How's it going, man? What's the first Impossible port do you think we'll see on Switch 2? Happy New Year to you, your guests, and everyone in the chat. Happy New Year as well, Attack the Backlog.
I mean, I bet GTA 5 comes out pretty close to launch.
GTA 6 or 5?
5.
Okay.
Like, I bet they'll have that ready to go so people can play it before 6 comes out. I don't know if 6 isn't confirmed to come to the Switch yet, is it?
There's some rumors. I think there was something that came out recently about GTA 5 coming to Switch potentially.
Oh yeah, but it's not like they confirmed PS5 and Xbox and PC, right? But they didn't.
Yeah, they did not confirm Switch.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
But
take
is
a
GTA 5 an impossible port for Switch 2?
Well, they literally couldn't confirm Switch 2 because they're not allowed to play it.
But I guess what I'm just getting at here, like, will we consider GTA 5 an impossible port, or we consider, GTA 6 an impossible port? Like, wouldn't GTA 5 be kind of reasonable to expect on Switch 2?
5 was on 360.
Yeah, but that I guess what I was going with is that at
Yeah.
one time was seen as an impossible port.
Sure. And maybe for Switch it would be somewhat challenging. Right? But if the question's about Switch 2, right? So but on the note of Grand Theft Auto, I was gonna say, because there's like some analysts that thinks that Switch 2 wouldn't be powerful enough. I don't think analysts always know what they're talking about. And I actually think, and obviously I could be wrong, but if we're talking about impossible ports, I wouldn't be shocked if we do see GTA 6 on Switch 2 at some point. I don't think it'll come out like day and date, but
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, that's a lot of money for them, and they're probably going to milk GTA 6 like they did GTA 5. So they're going to want people on the Switch in that ecosystem for years.
My only thing is, do you think the Switch would be like strong enough? Like,
the Switch 2 or the Switch?
The Switch 2, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, is it gonna run 4K 60? Because then I guess yes, but is that what we're expecting?
Well,
from
no,
this?
I expect a downgraded version, much like what some of the AAA games are.
Hogwarts Legacy on Switch, they can get GTA 6 on Switch 2.
Right.
If Nintendo Switch 2 is comparable to Xbox Series S, but with a little bit more modern conventions to help make up for the lack of pure RAM and specs that it has in this regard, then that's pretty much what Nintendo Switch was to Xbox One. So it's not exactly apples to apples, oranges to oranges kind of thing, but looking at the amount of time that has passed from when Xbox One came out to Nintendo Switch and Xbox Series S and Nintendo Switch 2, comparable amount of time will have passed, same amount of technological leap forward will have passed. So if you just apply that kind of thing, you're looking at probably Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be somewhere around producing what an Xbox Series S can, which that itself isn't a 4K 60 machine.
It's a current gen platform.
Current gen platform. So I think Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be pleasantly powerful.
I think I think there's a chance we could see Grand Theft Auto 6 on the Switch 2 or Switch successor. But if I had to guess my first impossible port, and I'm going to say impossible because we don't know the specs for Switch 2, I'm going to say Cyberpunk, actually. We know CD Projekt Red threw The Witcher 3 on Switch, and they, the team that they hired to do that port did pretty fine job at it as well. I think if, like you said, Paul, if the Switch 2 is somewhere in the realm of the power of the Xbox Series S, then Cyberpunk makes a lot of sense, especially because it's a game that's come around a lot, and I could see CD Projekt Red wanting to get that Nintendo audience.
Well, yeah, they literally put The Witcher on there.
Yeah. So,
and by that game performing well on Nintendo Switch 2, it would really show that, hey, this is a lot more powerful of a platform than PlayStation 4 was, because look at how that version was on that platform. So that would open up people's mind like, oh, Nintendo's past what that console was.
It would be a nice storyline to see it running well on Switch 2.
And I'll throw in too, assuming right now we don't know, there's been, mixed reports or rumors, I guess, about Switch 2, but assuming that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, it would be cool to see CD Projekt as well throw that next gen patch for Witcher 3 that we got on PlayStation and Xbox.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I didn't think about Cyberpunk at all, but I feel like that makes so much sense. That would be perfect, because then they could package it with like the full DLC, like it's the full game now. It's running well, and now it comes to Switch 2. I completely agree with you. That was
And
Genius
be
pick.
portable. Like that would it's a good way, like developers love putting games on Switch because it's like, oh, this is an opportunity to get like a second wind, right? So that I'm for the idea. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, I think. Something I'll mention though, right? I this kind of comes up in a lot. I always see kind of comments on this stuff because I don't think everyone is extremely aware. But like Nintendo's partnered with Nvidia, right? And what Nvidia has been pioneering right now is deep learning super sampling. And so the thought process is, and obviously this is speculation, but from what we understand, from what we've seen of the Nvidia leaks and the reports, right? This system is going to be taking advantage of deep learning super sampling. And so what that's going to ultimately lead to, right, that basically it uses AI to look at an image and it kind of upscales it, right? And so it makes games look better with less computing power, to put it in a very, very basic term, right? So it allows it to punch a bit more above its weight. So they could like target lower resolutions, but it'll output in a higher resolution, right? So you look at a lot of Switch games, right? And a lot of those impossible ports, they're basically blurry messes on Switch. But imagine if they had DLSS running on Switch, even though they would target a lower like resolution so they could run on Switch because of DLSS, they would look good as opposed to not good, as a lot of them do look on Switch. So,
and honestly, playing in handheld, typically it looks better on the smaller screen too.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, with that said, though, right, like I think, this idea of Switch 2 games being something like Series S, as you were talking about, Paul, like I think it's not going to be like, we can't like just talk about teraflops because it's different like factors that get involved, right? But if we're like the terminology I like to use, or the phrasing I like to use, is visual impact. Will the visual impact be comparable to Series S? And if so, then they can get things like GTA 6 and Cyberpunk onto Switch 2 in theory. That doesn't mean they will do it, but in theory they can. And if you look at how successful Switch has been, then if Nintendo does something similar with Switch 2, I kind of feel that what they're kind of doing is establishing a pattern, right? You look at how successful Sony was with PS1 to PS2 and how all the third parties like went over to them in droves. If Nintendo shows that they are going to kind of follow a similar sort of pattern, I think third parties will be even more comfortable, especially with seeing how successful Switch was.
We're definitely going to see a lot more third-party games come to Switch 2 at the beginning of its launch over the original Switch, for sure.
I like that you said beginning, because it's not guaranteed all things will shake out in the second half. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You alluding to something?
No. I just thought it was very smart, careful wording. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm just
appreciate
acknowledging that. Yeah.
I'll also say this real quick, just as a small comparison between how the more modern a platform is, it less has to rely on the typical conventions of power. Like, what do you think is stronger, an Xbox One X last gen console or Xbox Series S? On paper, Xbox One S has Xbox.
So confusing.
They made it confusing.
The last gen best version of the Xbox last gen.
Xbox One X last gen's best version has 12 gigs of RAM. The Xbox Series S has 10. The Xbox One X, which was last gen, has 6 teraflops. The Xbox Series S has 4, which is this current one. So in both the teraflop manner and the pure gigs of RAM, the Xbox Series S is a weaker platform, but it has more modern conventions in the other areas, such as better RAM, faster RAM, other kind of things that make up for it. So I don't think you have to expect, it's impractical for Nintendo Switch 2 to have 16 gigs of RAM crammed into this tiny device, have a giant battery, all to make it last for an hour and 30 minutes. No, with DLSS, with other kind of things, it's going to use a little bit of wizardry, a little bit of modern day trickery that the platforms didn't have in 2016 or even the 2020, other Sony Microsoft consoles. It'll make up for it. Mobile advancements are faster, I think, than the home console advancements, and we'll see a pretty ballsy Nintendo, I think.
I think so too. They're going to build smarter. And I was going to
I
mention
want to
this.
point out we're technically not in a prediction subject topic yet.
Haven't even started the podcast.
Okay, I'm actually not going to say my next thing yet. I'm going to save it.
Are you going to be okay, as long as you can? I want you to say it. I want to cut you off. So if you think you can save it for later, then
yeah, I'll save it for later.
All right, because I just want to finish up the chats real quick. And then any other chats afterwards we'll get to at the end of the show. And then we're actually going to jump into our predictions. So maybe we could start with whatever you're going to say, Cameron. But anyways, I would like to thank Varum Verby for this super chat. Thank you very much. Varum says, thanks, Andres. Ruby is a cutie. Love your channel and wish you the best of luck in 2024 on your channel. Here's to 50K and beyond. Everyone like the stream. Thank you very much.
Great.
And yes, if you could like the stream, that would be very helpful. I would appreciate
it. That was
it.
a super chat.
Hell yeah.
It was very super of him. Thank you. And Sam, who talks about games, has renewed their membership. Been a member for 11 straight months now. It's always been good having you around, Sam. Sam says or asks, what are your thoughts on Switch 2's stance on NSO? Will they add any more consoles, do you think? I'm just going to say expecting GameCube is setting yourself up for disappointment.
I was going to throw this in with one of my more wild predictions for possibly 2024 leading into Switch 2 possibly, but I have a fun little prediction that we might see the return of the Dreamcast on Switch Online. They've got Sega Genesis on there. A lot of Dreamcast games are stuck on the Dreamcast, unfortunately, and I feel like Nintendo's got a good relationship with Sega. I don't think we're going to see GameCube either, Andres. I think that's setting yourselves up to be a little bit disappointed, but I do think that Dreamcast is possible. I think Sega's shown an interest in wanting to release those again in some form factor. I believe I've read that they've shown interest in that in the past, but it's never come to fruition. I think Switch Online would be a great place for it.
Cam, did you watch the Game Awards?
I did. Yes, and I know they are doing sequels, but for Switch Online, getting those classic versions with just like an HD coat of paint, I think is definitely possible.
You don't think that the first time that Sega brings, like before they brought like Genesis to Switch, they released compilations of that for like years and years and years. Then they're finally like, okay, we'll give it to an online service. You don't think they're going to want to do compilations with Dreamcast first before they would put it on online?
I mean, to that,
they did it with Genesis, right? Like,
yeah, but they released that in collections for like
that's true, yeah,
like a dozen years before they ever allowed it to be put online. That's what I'm saying. Like, don't you think they'd want to do that first with the Dreamcast before they go to online?
Yeah, it depends how you look at it. You could argue that putting them on NSO would be marketing for the next generation versions.
They've also released games that are on Switch Online as well as other platforms, like when GoldenEye was a big deal, came to Xbox and Switch Online at the same time. That's why I said this is like kind of my crazy prediction, because yes, there are some leaps in logic, I guess, for seeing it in 2024, but they do need to add more content to Switch Online.
Sega
Saturn would be crazy.
Wow,
Saturn would be crazy.
We got Genesis. Why are we skipping Saturn? Because no one played Saturn. That's why.
Yeah, Saturn would be crazy. Dreamcast would be the bigger sell. And the really cool thing about getting Dreamcast games on Switch Online was a lot of them had a big emphasis on multiplayer and 4-player multiplayer. There was a lot of shoot 'em ups on Dreamcast.
Online system. Yeah.
Switch Online
What about Sega Pluto?
That's actually the final console in gaming, right? So everyone thinks it's gonna be between Nintendo and Sony. Xbox is gonna buy out with Game Pass eventually. But what's gonna happen 20 years from now? It's gonna be the apocalypse. It's gonna be one more video game system. It's gonna be called Sega Pluto, and they're gonna win.
No, dude, they made the Sega Pluto after the Saturn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, seriously? There's 3 of them in existence, and they're worth like $250,000. And I held one.
What are they? Like what are they?
What do you mean?
Like what do they play?
Like what? Yeah, what do they do? Like how is because Saturn was like meant to compete with N64 and PS1.
The guy that has it, like he's a YouTuber, Adam Koralik. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with him, but he makes like lots of videos on it because obviously he has it, and he's crazy too. He travels like to Europe and stuff and brings it with him, and he like takes pictures like with the sunset and like the ocean in the background and the Sega Pluto next to him. If you guys are interested about that, you should check out his channel because like he'll he can tell you everything about it.
I'm fascinated. Yeah, I'm curious what it is. But all right, last super chat here. This one's not much of a talking topic, but I do still appreciate it nonetheless. Boo Mini, thank you for super chat. Boo says, I second what Varum Verby said. Love this channel and wishing the very best for his community in general as we head to 2024. Thank you for that, Boo Mini. I appreciate you. And with that, let's jump into the actual predictions. So, Cameron, you were going to say something. What was that something?
I'm gonna go to this one a little bit later. Let's start elsewhere because it's a little bit It's a little bit of a later.
So
prediction.
There's a lot of ways we can handle this, right? Because I think we're all gonna have a whole bunch of predictions. So maybe we should just address the elephant in the room first. Do we think Switch 2 is happening next year?
Are you
Hopefully.
Are you asking about a launch or a reveal?
Oh, see, well that's where we're gonna start to see some differentiation.
Both.
I expect both.
No, actually, just a launch, no reveal. Just a launch.
There we go. It's gonna be the Sega Pluto 2. Came out, but no one knows about it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a launch next year.
Okay.
If we don't, I think first quarter 2025.
So are you feeling holiday for Switch 2 then?
Holiday Switch 2. Yeah, late summer to holiday. I could see them doing a weird late summer release. I don't think we're gonna get the winter spring drop, but I think a weird summer to holiday release.
Okay.
I agree. I'm fully expecting the Switch 2 to come out around holiday, like later in the year. I mean, I don't really know anything super deep about it. I haven't super kept up with the leaks, but just I feel like it's gonna come later. I don't think Nintendo they seem like they're transitioning, but I think they're gonna want to get some hype around it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Paul, what do you think?
Okay. You ready for me to take up a little bit of time?
Do it.
Right, let's go. Let's go.
The stage is yours.
Spit some fire.
Go, Ballster.
To be more safe, I would say, September or November. Just later in the year means there's more time for you to be right than calling it like, okay, it's going to be in the next 3 weeks, and then you're wrong right away.
It just feels safer.
It just feels safer.
Sure.
In Nintendo's history, I think it's probably the more likely for how they operated, GameCube, Wii U, but not every platform if you look at the handhelds especially. So I'm not going to be safe right now, though. I have some fun numbers, which is what I teased.
All right, let's go.
All
right. Someone's taking a risk here. Okay, let's do it.
There were 134 days between the Nintendo Switch reveal on October 20th and when the platform came out on March 3rd. I expect Nintendo to have a similar, if not even smaller, amount of time in between the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement and when it comes out, because they have such a hot selling system in Nintendo Switch that they don't want to nerf their own sales. In the past, you kind of had to have a game console, a next year from now, a year and a half from now, because the video game industry was smaller, it was moving slower, there were fewer major players that were competition, etc. But things have kind of changed a lot.
Can I just add one thing before you continue, Paul, just to piggyback on that for a second?
Yeah.
Oh God, I hate that phrase. I hate those people. Anyway,
I like pigs, though.
Now I'm one of them. All right.
Okay.
But no,
you should be ashamed of yourself.
All right. Kidding. The other thing is, no matter how many they make, they're gonna sell all of them for months. Like they're gonna have no problem selling them. So the best way to build hype, like Josie was saying, was get it out in 2 months. So when their regular Switch sales die because they announced a new Switch, they minimize that amount of time, and then all the Switch 2s they can make for months and months will sell out immediately, and they'll use that time to release a couple incredible games, and that will be so much more of an effective hype building year than just like announcing it and then coming out with it. But continue, Paul. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Yeah, like you don't want to hurt Nintendo Switch's positive sales, because there is no doom and gloom. When the NPD or the Circana reports come out and says, "Oh, Nintendo Switch was second for the month," like, dude, look at poor Xbox Series X has been third for the vast majority of its life. Even when Nintendo Switch is third. It's still doing a good third. In Japan, it's still first. It's still selling hundreds of thousands of units. It's still selling millions per quarter. So Nintendo doesn't want to lose that and be like, here's Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out in a year and a half. Some people would wait that long, and buy it and not buy a Nintendo Switch. But anyways, let's not talk about that. Let's get back to the fun numbers. I found a date of January 25th, 2024, which is
Wait, that's my birthday.
It's that they might be lucky.
I'm just kidding.
I might be doing this for you. It's a date. I just want
to see if it freak you out. All right, go ahead.
It's a date that has some relevance for a couple of reasons. One, that will be the 5th anniversary of the Metroid Prime 4 restructuring. So optimistic me, numbers me would be like Nintendo says 5 years ago today, we announced that Metroid Prime 4 was getting rebooted by Retro Studios. We're proud to show off the first footage today and also do the reveal of our next platform in Nintendo Switch 2. And 134 days later would be June 7th. Why June 7th? Because that is about as comparable as you could get to March 3rd. When Nintendo released the Nintendo Switch originally, it came out kind of 2/3 into that quarter. Nintendo doesn't want to have on their budgets any quarter looking bad with poor sales. If you announce a system too early and have it come out at the end of the quarter, a lot of people are going to hold off on buying Nintendo Switch because they'll just wait for that Nintendo Switch 2. Having it as June 6th or June 7th, as I said, as when the system would come out, puts it right in that you don't hurt too many of the sales in the quarter leading up to that.
All right, chat. I need someone to write this down.
3 days of the month.
June 6th or June 7th, and if that comes true, then we're coming back to Paul.
But I have one other one that's fun. Like I said, I've got two little things. I'm looking at February 14th. And February 14th looks like it could be a.
Is that Valentine's Day?
Mm-hmm.
You romantic little
bitch. For a Nintendo
Sorry,
Direct, because Nintendo operates in those first couple of weeks of February, typically for Nintendo Direct. If you have a Nintendo Direct on February 14th, and once again, go that a little bit of time later, you end up on July 10th, technically. But the significant thing about that is it ties the amount of time, which was the longest amount of time between a console and its successor, which was Famicom to Super NES, 2,686 days. That happens to be the date of.
Okay, you got the same math as me.
And Nintendo Switch 2. So if they want to pair it up, I'm two wild, crazy predictions.
I could see the slogan already in the presentation. Last year we gave you Zelda and Mario. Today we're gonna steal your hearts. And then a huge explosion, pyrotechnics. Doug Bowser cartwheels onto the stage, holding a Switch 2.
And
right?
he's able to brace himself because of the scroll wheels.
I didn't know you were finished. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
I was trying to process it all.
Yeah, that's a big mental picture.
It's a lot to process.
There's a lot of
fair enough.
The dates. I did write it out so it was easier for me to read, but I'm just looking at basically the gist of it is a comparable window of time, which is relatively short, 4.5 months from when Nintendo shows off the platform to when it comes out. And also at the same time, not that they necessarily care about beating the record between Famicom and SNES, but that was a whopping 2,686 days. So if you officially release this platform on July 12th or July 19th, you beat that record in between.
So it would be the longest running platform as the primary console for Nintendo ever by that point.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that kind of strengthens the argument more so that this is a very long generation for Nintendo. The one thing,
it's just fun stuff.
Yeah, no, it's all fun stuff. But the one thing that I for sure want to kind of like put out there, because I put out a video today, right? And basically the video was me talking about, guys, I don't know when the hell this is gonna happen. I just think it's happening sometime this year. That's the basic gist of my video today. But one point that I kind of feel strong about is what you were sort of talking about, this window, right? And I think it makes sense, right? As you guys were sort of alluding to, like Nintendo's going to want to announce this system and then release it pretty quickly, because once they announce it, it does impact sales to an extent, right? So like they want to get there quickly. And I think as we look at Nintendo and how they progressed over the years, the quick turnarounds, that's becoming more and more of a thing. That's where they're trending towards. And so, as you said, 134 days, which it's interesting because that's 4 months and 2 weeks, right? Like literally, like 30 times 4, 120 plus 14, right? 4.5 months. I think the longest gap we see between reveal and release for Switch 2 is 4.5 months. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even like 3 or 4 months. Whenever that does happen, right? If they reveal it in June, comes out 3 months later, right? Like September. I actually kind of feel pretty good about September. I think September. I like September as a month just because I can see Nintendo releasing 3D Mario and then still have a couple months left to put out a few other bangers, maybe like Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon.
And also, this doesn't have to do much with the date itself, but I think when they release we're assuming that Nintendo Switch 2 is shown off and the release date is coming at the same time, right? Maybe not, but I think when Nintendo Switch 2 is shown off, Nintendo Switch existing hardware gets the price drop. And that's kind of how you combat the sales decline in people saying, I could just wait 4 months. Oh, but now Nintendo Switch Lite is only, $150. Oh, okay. Now the Nintendo Switch base model, it's only $230, whatever it is. Like,
right. I see them doing a reveal that has a window like holiday 2024 or late or summer 2024, and then getting another direct presentation with even more of the lineup outside of what they decide to show off in the first reveal, with that more concrete date as it gets closer.
Okay.
It's hard to predict because they didn't have to worry about anything with Wii U, and that's why we can't use like all of that existing data.
Yeah, I don't think it could
do it.
Yeah.
They didn't care. It wasn't going to sell anyways in the holidays, so it was like, let's just show this now.
Right.
They were still selling the 3DS though, and the Switch was technically a successor to both.
But they said it wasn't at the time.
I mean, it did take
and the Nintendo DS wasn't a successor to the Game Boy Advance, but it was,
third pillar.
Right. Third.
What I mean is, when they announced the Switch, they said that they were continue to support the 3DS going forward.
Sure, and they're going to continue to support the Switch going forward, even when they announce Switch 2.
Well, yeah, especially because it's going to be backwards compatible.
And they did support the 3DS a very little bit, a normal amount, like most companies.
Way less than what they made it sound like. Yeah.
They had several published titles coming out each year until March 2019.
Wasn't 2017? Didn't they announce? And correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while, and I'm going off the cuff. But 2017 E3, they announced Samus Returns for 3DS.
Yeah, it came out that holiday.
Yeah.
Also a new Pokemon game.
New Pokemon as well.
Samus Returns is amazing. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like we all agree Switch 2 is happening. Obviously, there's gonna be a debate about release timing, but but something you brought up, or rather, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. Who wants to put out a prediction?
Wait, I just want to know what you guys think about this one. Do you think we're gonna get like that rumored Switch like Micro or Switch Mini?
You stealing my predictions, bro.
To be real so bad. I can see them releasing it after the Switch 2 comes out. And they're like, oh, by the way, here's like a really small, inexpensive Switch. So maybe it doesn't even have a cartridge slot because, like, I don't know.
Maybe actually, that's an interesting.
I don't know. The cartridge slot is so small on that thing. You think it'd be fine, but
yeah, it wouldn't be a cost saving measure. It would be let's force it
to be
like
a fun
games
thing. Yeah,
right. I'll say that we saw the same thing in 2017. They announced a new 2DS months after the Switch came out. Same year.
Yeah.
So.
And they've done the same thing with many of their home consoles too.
Right. There's always like a smaller, cheaper revision of their prior gen console coming on the same year, or at least soon after. So I think I actually, I think it's a solid prediction. The only thing I was gonna make that a prediction actually, but there is something I kind of have some trouble with this idea, and it's just that it kind of comes down to when Nintendo comes out with Switch 2. Because if we don't see Switch 2 until say like June, like in a June direct, right, it doesn't come out till September or October, then at that point, are we looking at a Switch revision coming out maybe early 2025 instead? And that's no longer a 2024 prediction anymore, right?
Fair.
That's a 2025 prediction.
Happening. Yeah.
Right. So that's where I'm kind of a little hesitant to be like 100% yeah, we're getting 2. Like we did have the report earlier this month that Nintendo was ordering multiple Samsung like next gen OLED panels for multiple IT devices. Like that's a report. That's hard information. Right. So they're getting next generation OLED panels for multiple devices. So I think that does imply that there's going to be, more than one type of Nintendo system coming out within the next year or so. I'm just not sure when exactly.
This is in my opinion, a very interesting time for Nintendo, because when I think about what's coming next from the console department, like what we're used to is Iwata. He ran the show. He led the launch of the Wii and the DS all the way up to the Switch. And we've got Furukawa in charge now, and I know he's more on the business side. It's part of the reason why I expect Nintendo to put something out a little bit more powerful than they've typically done since the Wii days. But it's interesting because I feel like all the kind of staples and conventions of Nintendo we saw under Iwata's presidency might not necessarily apply to Shintaro's. Basically.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a new Nintendo now. I think looking at old Nintendo patterns, we got to take them all with a grain of salt, because Nintendo's focusing one platform now. It's just different. They don't have 2 platforms. They have consistent games coming out. So the way they handle the transition is just going to be different. Feel free to throw out some predictions. Josie,
what did everyone else think about the mini Game Boy? Did Paul and Josie say or no? Or not the mini Game Boy, the mini Switch?
The mini Switch, I don't think it's gonna. I'd like it. I think it'd be cute and like novel, like the Game Boy Micro, but I don't really see them doing it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I don't think.
So, just to be clear, right? I don't think a Switch Mini. I think like a Switch Lite OLED, like just an updated light. Like that's what I think we'll see.
That's not as fun though.
I mean, maybe it is smaller. I don't know if we're going to call it a mini.
I wouldn't buy a Switch Lite OLED.
You won't.
Would you buy a Switch Lite OLED that is capable of TV output?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be cool.
Maybe.
Yeah.
They should do something like that. Yeah. If they.
Okay, Paul. All right. I see you.
Maybe they call it Switch Lite Plus.
Yeah, something weird. They're gonna go with a bizarre
Switch
name.
Lite Heavy.
Yeah. The Switch
Lite
Ultra
XL.
Light.
Oh no, Switch Lite Heavy. I like that. Switch Lite Heavy.
It's like the people, if you get a Budweiser instead of a Bud Light, like, and they're like, "Oh, can I get a Bud Heavy?" So
There
no.
you go.
It is like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've got a prediction for.
Is this the thing you were going to say earlier, or is this not? It's still saving that.
Yes, this is tied. I'm going to word it differently now, but it is tied to what I was going to say earlier.
Okay.
No.
I predict that we might see the return of dual screen technology in some way or another. We were talking earlier when I almost mentioned this. We were talking about Nintendo Switch Online and adding new consoles. The DS is one of the most successful Nintendo consoles of all time. Think second most successful.
Nintendo DS, I think it's number 1.
Number one.
number one.
Okay, it's number one.
Nintendo. It's under PS2. It's the second best selling game console of all time.
There we go. Under the PS2, second best game console, selling game console of all time. Amazing library. Same with the 3DS. Amazing library. And those games are stuck on those systems because of the dual screen functionality. A lot of them don't transition well. When you do, it's just a poor port. And I think the Wii U was kind of ahead of its time. I think the console that they could have made with the Wii U was too expensive and wouldn't have worked at the time. But now I think the technology is there. They could do something that is in line with a Series S or PS4 level power, offer that dual screen tech, whether it's a controller that can tether to your TV through a little box, and then you could just take the controller on the go like a regular Switch and have the one screen. I don't know how they do it, or the flip screen technology with the bending screen, like they have the new flip phones. I don't know how they do it, but I think dual screen.
I think that could be a really good gimmick for the next Switch. Like that's what we've been trying to figure out. But I think that like it'll be something where like 90% of games don't take advantage of it at all. It's just you can play them how you play normal Switch, and you want them like that. But there's some games that are specifically made, or they add DS to online or whatever, that take advantage of having something on the TV while having your Switch. There's certain games that can take advantage of that, but maybe it'll be like Super Mario Odyssey. Like you play with the Joy-Cons, but you don't have to. You can still play it with it on when that came out.
Sure.
Like something like that.
To me, the greatest functionality in the Wii U, I think Zelda plays the best on that console. Having your items and your map right there and being able to touch. Thinking about playing like a port of Tears of the Kingdom and being able to touch and swipe through your items and abilities.
Breath of the Wild on the Wii U, it doesn't let you do that. It makes you do the same thing as the Switch for a lot of it, because they had it originally where you could do that on the gamepad, and it was so much more fun than the Switch version because of that they made them take it out so people wouldn't say that was the better version, because it was like obvious. Yeah, and some like one of my favorite games on the Wii U for the gamepad is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. And that came out on the Switch too. But what made it so awesome on the Wii U is you're playing the game. It's like a Persona Fire Emblem. It's literally those two series officially collaborated, and that's what it is.
Pink.
So you're playing the game like a Persona game, basically. And like you'll get text messages from the other characters, but it doesn't interrupt your gameplay. They pop up like your tablet is your phone. And like you can be playing the game and texting people back. And that was so cool. And I remember I bought that game when it came out on Switch. So I was like, how are they going to do this? And they just made it not as fun.
Yeah.
It would be cool to have them bring it back now that they can handle it.
And that's why I'm going back to like, I think the Wii U, the concept was ahead of its time. I think the Wii U should have been the Switch. And then the Wii U should have been the natural progression from the Switch, where you have this kind of dual screen home console component. Yeah. And I just think about like, everyone's been clamoring for Zelda HD ports with Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. And yeah, they're going to look a lot better and you'll have them on the go. But when I think about which version plays better, it's going to be the Wii U because of that dual screen that lets you, grab your items quickly. It lets you look at your map without having to pull up menus and pause the game. And I think about what that could do for ports of games like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, or whatever games, like you said, like, Persona and have your text messages. It definitely didn't get the use that it could have on the Wii U. I think part of that was sales. It didn't make sense financially. I think we're looking at a different Nintendo now, but I also think that there's basic functionality that could easily be integrated into that type of tech. I'd really like to see that.
When you release games like that you're able to play them either in just TV mode or just handheld mode without that gimmick. So it's like an optional thing almost.
Sure. But this lends it to like what I was saying, like if they do have that folding screen tech,
that would be crazy.
That would work. You hold it like you hold it like a normal controller, and when you put it away, you flip it down, but you've got your TV in that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think
it's a really fun idea, and what I love about it is that it enables them to go back to DS and 3DS Virtual Console, and some of the Wii U style of gameplay. Like that's cool stuff. I don't see it as cost effective, right? Like I understand you're trying to make the point that now it's more feasible than it was in the past, but is it still feasible? Like, is it feasible to do that and still have like a system that can upscale with DLSS to 4K and these different things? And so I'll just say this. I don't believe it's happening, but also, admittedly, before Switch came out, I was on team. Nah, this is a console at home. There's no way that they can make a portable home console experience, and they did, right? So while I don't believe it, I'm not going to completely outrule it either.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
could
I
be
think
wrong
there's-
again, is what you're saying.
It happens, yeah.
So multiple
Awesome.
times.
Yep,
I feel like there's a lot of merit to what you're saying, though. Like I feel like it makes sense that Nintendo would want some weird, wacky gimmicks, so this fits it perfectly. And then on top of that, like it would just allow for Game Boy or DS and 3DS.
You
I
got
was
it. You got
insane.
it.
DS and 3DS to like come to Switch Online, which I feel like that'd be a huge miss if they never came. Like those are some of the best libraries, some of the best games.
Mhm.
Like that was my prediction for 2024 as well. I thought DS was going to come to Switch. I don't know. I think if you turn the Switch vertical, they slice it in half.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it.
You
But
totally could.
maybe with like a
but-
peripheral to make it.
Yeah.
with the peripheral.
Could be an easy pick.
I almost think that this folding screen thing, like I kind of hope it isn't the main thing because I think that would make people feel like it's too gimmicky. Like
Sure.
like a lot of people would be like, oh, this is like, like how the Wii had it was a great console, but it was so bogged down by the fact that it was just motion controlled. And so if it's like super weird, like it again, I think that worries me for the sales. But
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
just
For
hard.
other things, it'd be great.
It's hard for me, even though, again, like we said earlier, and Andres, you were agreeing on, this is kind of a new Nintendo. It's hard to look at the past when looking at the future right now. But it's hard for me to visualize just a more powerful Switch coming from Nintendo because they're always chasing innovation. And whether it's a cheesy gimmick or a really cool gimmick like the Switch, the portable with detachable controllers, I expect something that, other than power, will separate this from the first one. And I'm curious to hear if you guys. I am curious. Yeah, scroll wheels. But I am curious to hear if you guys think that that's gonna stick the landing. Are we gonna get some weird innovation with this, or do you guys think they're gonna kind of forget about that and just be like, this is just a more powerful Switch? What do you guys think? I'm curious.
I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think there is going to be some innovations, but they're going to be innovations that aren't going to be extremely expensive, like things that really change a lot. Like, I mean, just like the Switch has a number of minor innovations, right?
Right.
Yeah, like the Joy-Cons themselves, I would argue, like the Joy-Cons are separate from the main Switch mechanic, but they're still so flexible in what they can do. Like they enable things like Ring Fit Adventure or Nintendo Labo. And so that gives Nintendo a lot of options, right? So I don't know exactly what they may do, but I think there could be some minor things that collectively could, facilitate a good experience. Like maybe Nintendo does kind of change the Switch to somewhat where it's more capable of like being a dedicated VR system down the road, for example. I'm not saying like out of the box, right? But like just something like that. Maybe there are scroll wheels. I'm joking around about it, but what if they do add some sort of new button mechanic that actually just straight up enhances our experience? How does the Steam Deck do it? Is it like you mean like the haptic?
Yeah, it's like the mouse with that. It's like you just move your finger
the mouse
over
pad.
it.
The trackpad.
Yeah. Not in love with those, but not saying it can't work.
I think whatever the new gimmick is, I think because just a more powerful Switch is what everyone really, really wants most and is most important. Like a gimmick on top of that would be nice, but I think since that's the thing that the market wants, it makes too much sense to not do that, but still add a gimmick, just something that is optional, that, doesn't need to be used every game, like the way they use the Joy-Cons for ARMS and Skyward Sword and like
All
Mario
optional.
Odyssey, but not every single game. Like I think it needs to be something like that.
And that's why I think one of the amazing things about the Switch, right? Like because they could do so many things, like it's still it's like the most core traditional Nintendo system ever, but it still has the option for all those types of different gimmicks that we've seen throughout. The only thing they're missing is a dual screen gameplay, right? Which I know like it'd be awesome to have, but does it make sense to have a system that has two screens? Like that's expensive, but we'll see. Do we have any ideas what the gimmick would be? Like,
I think there could be some truth to a dual screen thing, but I think that it would come in the form of an optional peripheral, and like could be sort of like, I don't know, like a weird. You know how in Super Mario Party you can connect two switches together?
Yeah.
It's gonna be something like that, like kind of weird, and you
And
don't
maybe just a
super
piece of
need it.
plastic that allows you to hold it together or something.
Yeah, you don't super need it, but you could do it if you want, I think. And I'm hoping, like everyone else, that it's just a very small thing. I have no idea what it could be. I feel like that's the thing, is that nobody can really predict these things unless you guys pull some crazy shit off right here. But it's so hard to protect because Nintendo's so out of left field.
All right, here's a left field prediction. You guys ready?
Yep.
I don't actually believe this. This is just for fun.
He believes it 100%.
You're testing the waters to see how we
These
react.
are his true feelings, chat.
I have a real one. But,
well, I'm saving my real ones, but I'll say this: Nintendo HDS.
Wait, what?
You can play your DS and 3DS games, but upscaled in HD.
no Switch, just HDS.
Oh, HDS. Okay.
It's another Nintendo console. It just allows you to play old DS and 3DS games, but upscaled in HD, and
Maybe
that's
that
how we
has-
can modernize them.
High definition Switch, high dual Switch.
Oh, that's I accidentally leaked the name of the Switch too.
HDS.
Damn it!
It's a combination of
Yeah.
high definition and dual screen and Switch. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Paul, you said you had a prediction?
I mean, not to say it's that likely, but just I dance around with Nintendo going VR, but the only way to go VR and to be successful is to have it be a guaranteed inclusion in every Nintendo Switch to date, right? Not every Nintendo 64 game used the Rumble Pack or the expansion pack after expansion pack came out, because developers knew not everyone has it, so that limits the amount of people that are going to buy it and use it. And that kind of goes with any kind of gimmick, right? Any kind of thing that you add later into a generation. And even if it's something powerful and well received in terms of how it functions, like PlayStation VR 2, still, you're only going to ever have a few million people out of PlayStation 5's 50, 60, 70 million. So the way that you would do this for Nintendo would be include VR strap in every box from the get-go. It wouldn't be the most optimum way to play VR. It would basically be Nintendo Switch, Labo VR, but it would be a designated inclusion where it's a small headpiece that the Nintendo Switch 2 slides in, just made out of plastic and whatever nylon material kind of straps, not out of cardboard. And it would only function the same. It would function the same way like your iPhone does, or smartphone, whatever. Same kind of tech with the two lenses. So it's not good quality VR or anything like that, but it makes VR in the box with every single unit. That way, you can eventually tell developers 5 million, 10 million, 20, 30, 40, 50 million people have access to VR, because those are how many people bought a Nintendo Switch 2. So if you wanted to propel the industry forward in VR, you can't be doing it with a small device that's later on included as this big separate giant cost in the system's
That's how everyone else does it.
I mean, and how well does it work for Oculus? How well does it work? Are they selling 70 million? Are the games coming out reflective of the quality of Breath of the Wild?
Software's not selling either.
I think we're onto something here, because the thing about
the next 3D Mario, you don't have to play in VR, but it's such a good VR game. Maybe it doesn't look the best because it's not running in the highest fidelity.
I don't think enough people want that. I don't know. Maybe I'm minority.
Metroid 4 VR from the start. Ooh, Samus.
So I actually like this idea, right? I think we've touched on the idea of Nintendo going to VR. Obviously, I mean, Nintendo's touched on it themselves. They literally made the Labo VR, right? But the Switch is an underpowered console that has a 720p screen, and resolution definitely matters when it comes to like putting a screen right in front of you and to give you the VR experience, right? And so some of the rumors are, again, rumor, right? But like what we're kind of be led to expect here is that maybe we're going to get another OLED panel that would be 8 inches. And so if it's 8 inches, I'm even wondering if it'll have a higher resolution, right? Maybe not a lot higher, maybe 1080p. But if we're talking about an OLED panel, larger screen, a slightly higher resolution, and the system's going to be comparable to Series S, right? In other words, not too far from PS4 Pro, which was better for PlayStation VR, right? Maybe it's not that much of a stretch, and maybe the big innovation is that Nintendo all of a sudden can make VR mainstream. Because if it is, to your point, just like a little plastic like strap that you can slot your Switch into, right? Then all of a sudden, it's not that much more expensive, and everyone who has a Switch 2 can play VR out of the box.
No, dude, I hate that so much.
This is
because, like, if it comes with the Switch, then it's gonna be like they're pressured to add some kind of VR, even if it's optional, to every first-party Nintendo game. I don't want them worrying about that. I don't want them thinking about that at all. I want them to just make the best Mario game. Like, I don't want them to worry about VR. Like, and they'll feel like that.
Not every game uses infrared.
Yeah, but Nintendo, if they're gonna include something with a console, they're gonna try to incorporate it into all their major franchises.
Well, what I just saw, they had infrared. They didn't use it for that many games. It was just for
HD Rumble even.
No. Yeah, actually, a lot of Nintendo games don't even use HD Rumble. Some do, and I wish more did. But
yeah, but dude, that's just like different things while you're playing. VR is a totally different thing to play. People don't want to play VR if they want to just play a regular game. If they want to play VR, they go play VR. Like, I don't know. I hate it so much.
Maybe it could just be a $15 peripheral where it's a strap. Your Switch can already do it. You strap it in. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
Or you want to do that, like bundle it with the games that have it. Like,
do you guys remember in 64 when they would bundle all the RAM expansion packs? And so if you bought multiple games that had it bundled, you would have like 4.
You gotta. Developers don't have to use it, but they know, hey, it's not a waste of our time if we make a game in VR because only 3 million people out of the 60 million Nintendo Switch 2 owners own a VR device that they spent a couple $100 on the side for, because that's why the advancement in VR games hasn't been as
but the thing you're saying would only cost like $30? Like, that's not a huge ask. That's not the same as $600 for PSVR.
I'm kind of with...
Sorry.
Oh.
Who are you with, Cameron? What side have you chosen?
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh God, I wasn't sure if you were talking. I wasn't sure if you were talking to me or Paul. I'm actually kind of with Jake on this one. I don't know that this would
booting you both from the podcast. Goodbye.
Hold on.
I'm not offended by this.
Let me explain. I don't think that this would be much of a selling point for the Switch successor.
Yeah.
Right now, VR is not a hot selling item. And I think a big reason for that is that so many of the VR experiences are either extremely gimmicky / repetitive or just lazy. They're just ports of games that already exist. There's not like a huge I need this VR headset because I can only experience a game like this here. It's a lot of rinse and repeat. And I mean, Sony just came out with PSVR 2. It's an impressive piece of tech. Yes, it has a high barrier of entry, but as far as games library goes, they haven't done a good job, in my opinion, of telling me why I need this device or why I should want this device. I feel like if Nintendo's going to do an idea like this, where they have a cheap strap with their better hardware, a better idea would be to sell a game that's Ring
Fit Adventure?
Ring Fit Adventure, thank you. Where it's a really cool collection of VR experiences. Maybe it has a Luigi's Mansion, a Pokemon Snap, a Link's Crossbow Training.
So you're talking about Nintendo Land VR?
Pretty much Nintendo Land VR with a VR that I think
would be the perfect launch title.
Would be a fantastic thing, because they could put a lot of money into it, and they could be like, okay, this isn't a specific VR device, but we can make this little add-on that comes with this great pack-in game, and if it does well, you already have it. Maybe we sell a second, Nintendo Land 2, VR 2, or whatever.
Nintendo
I don't know.
Land VR leaked.
But
here it is. I can't wait to see all the videos on it.
But I feel like there is work that goes into making a game that's already developed VR compatible. And I feel like if it's done correctly. It's just an inferior experience than the way the game was originally designed to be played. So
I got
personally,
finish what you're saying. I just don't want to forget.
I personally don't think that a pack-in strap that's like, hey, this isn't a VR machine, but you can play it as one, is going to be a big selling point. I don't think people are going to run to the stores.
So you don't think Nintendo's going to include the strap-on with the new console?
Oh,
yes. Let's continue to talk about the strap-on.
No.
Maybe it's placed somewhere else.
Don't you think? Haven't they always put cameras on their handheld devices? Do you think they throw a camera on and put that in the games?
They could do some weird AR stuff like they did with the 3DS.
Yeah, and there's like
Josie, I'd expect AR before VR.
That uses the camera really good too. They could port games like that.
Guys, seriously though, think about how successful Switch is. It's incredible. It's better than 3DS, and yet it didn't have Street Pass. Like, imagine having Street Pass.
Well, that's the funny thing about Nintendo. They're like crushing in the bank right now. They're doing so well with the Switch. But man, if there was one company who leaves money on the table constantly, it's Nintendo. You're right. Street Pass would have been amazing with the popularity of Switch.
Wasn't Street Pass like a free feature though? Like, you know, I don't know.
Free feature. Yeah. But like still, like, you have friends who have Switches, or you know people, and you go out and you're socializing and hanging out, taking my Switch with me. I'm getting all these collectibles in the game. It's gonna just build that social element that's gonna make kids, especially kids, be like, oh well, I want to Switch. I want to be able to hang out and get collectibles from being around my friends with my.
What if that's one of the big gimmicks? Like they introduce like a revamped Street Pass.
You know, I could see them doing something like that, and then there'd be like a step counter or something, and Pikmin Bloom is coming to Switch or something weird like that.
Where they like try to oh, that's so good, yeah.
Yeah, like where they try to make it popular with like, I don't know, the like the weird AR stuff. That could also go into the camera thing. I don't know. I feel like that kind of makes sense.
I think you're onto something here, and this would actually be more conceivable than like putting an extra OLED panel in there. Like that, it would be cheap by comparison. Yeah.
Also, real quick, back to VR just for 2 seconds. I think that if any company could popularize VR, it would be Nintendo, but they would have to go all in and they would destroy their fan base. And it would be a colossal failure, but it would be really cool. And it might bring it more to the mainstream, but people would still be pissed. And I don't think there's a good way for Nintendo to approach it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, launch with Mario Kart VR. You're already hitting a home run. Then announce Star Fox VR, you know, piloting. You've got Fox, and you get to be your own character.
And then that game's going to bomb, and then people and Nintendo's going to be like, oh, you see, Star Fox doesn't sell. No, because you didn't make a good Star Fox game. Again, just make a good Star Fox game. It will sell. Don't give us that.
Metroid Prime VR would be sick.
It would be. Yeah.
The Pfizer's made for it.
You know, what's interesting is you look at like a lot of VR games, they're just basically like another version of a remaster for older games.
Sure.
And so that's kind of a safer play, right? Like it makes more sense to give us Metroid Prime remastered VR than it does Metroid Prime 4 from a business perspective, just because you're not running the risk of, you know, alienating people from buying the big brand. Like imagine if Tears of the Kingdom was VR, right? Like they probably wouldn't sell 20 million in like a few months. They would sell 5. I don't know.
They could kind of like split the player base again, not really, but like they could have, instead of handheld and home console, it could be like the hybrid and the VR console, and they could be two separate entities maybe. And I think that's the only way that it could really work, because I feel like if Nintendo is half-assing VR, it's not going to do well, but it's also going to really anger people if the next huge Zelda game is exclusively VR.
Yeah. No, you're right. It has to be a well thought out extension. And, you know, for people who predicting that, what if Nintendo would go back to having a dedicated home console and a dedicated handheld? Maybe the dedicated home console slot, the hybrid console, and VR as that second pillar would be a more plausible idea for Nintendo. But like, again, I think you hit the nail on the head, Josie. Nintendo's
all the things today.
Nintendo's IP has such popularity. There's a reason why Smash is as big as it is. The characters are so huge, and they're the only company actually whose IP spans like pretty much every genre. You know, for third-person competitive shooter, Splatoon, action adventure, Zelda, platformer, Mario, RPG. You've got Fire Emblem. Thank you. Sorry.
No,
First person
how
shooter,
dare you?
Metroid Prime.
Xenoblade Chronicles, Fire Emblem
Xenoblade Chronicles,
strategy
yeah.
RPG.
Fair enough. But like thinking
They
about
both
like
count. They
it
count.
or like when I was
Pokemon.
spitting out like Luigi's Mansion and Pokemon Snap
That's a
and Star
monster
Fox and Mario
capturing
Kart,
simulator.
it was I didn't even have to think about it. Their IP fit into VR experiences so well. So
I think we
Yeah.
can all agree that when it comes to Nintendo, VR stands for very ridiculous. Let's go to
Sure.
the next up.
Oh, I actually love that.
WarioWare VR. There you go. There's another one that would be phenomenal.
That would actually be fun too. There are a lot of these would be fun, but
I actually feel pretty good about what we kind of talked about here. Like, you know, like the VR thing, like if they kind of
we're still-
introduce it
good.
like Ring Fit Adventure, like that feels pretty doable actually, right?
Mhm.
Like Ring
yeah,
Fit's a good seller. So
it feels like my neighbor. Pretty doable.
Yep.
Sorry.
We're definitely going off rails now.
Sorry.
No, that's all
I
right.
shouldn't have
Parents,
went that
hide
way
your
about
kids.
Mr. Jenkins.
No.
It's my bad.
I'm out now. I'm excited for Street Pass, VR, augmented
Dude,
reality.
to be honest, what all this talk has made me realize is I think it's much more likely that they do come out with their own dedicated VR device once the Switch 2 has legs. It's okay. It's doing its own thing. Like maybe 3 years in, then they launch a VR that doesn't need the Switch 2 to
Yeah,
run.
it's like
Maybe
it's standalone.
Yes, exactly.
It should
And the
be a
games-
standalone. Yeah.
The
That's
games that are
where I
made
may
for it are
disagree.
just for it. Yeah, and so there's no weird feelings about Switch owners that are like, oh, are they going to try to make every game VR now? Like, no, it's like its own thing.
Yeah, I think
know.
that's the best way to approach it personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that one. Just because I like it as an an accessory to a potential Switch 2. I agree. Actually, maybe a couple years down the road, right, once it established an audience. But like, you know, if you want it to become mainstream, if it's just like a cheap add-on to Switch 2, and there are select games that use it, right? In other words, it's not forced, it's not mandatory, just the games they choose to use. That has a better chance of going mainstream than it being its own more expensive device.
Well, what if like one of the things with it is it's its own standalone thing that plays its own games, but it can communicate with your Switch 2 dock or whatever, or your Switch 2, and there can be like DLC or add-ons for Switch 2 games that you use it for. But also, if like you had got it just for VR, you don't have to have the Switch 2 to be able to use it also. That makes sense?
My problem with that is then you would have to have like it would have to be pretty expensive because it would need the hardware, right? And so if you don't have it attaching to the already existing hardware, then we're talking about
It wouldn't have to be significantly expensive. Like Nintendo, like when they can go like a generation behind power-wise. They always do that. And like Oculus Quest 2, like I don't know how much they go for now, but that technology is so old that they could come up with something like that. And that was pretty cheap when it came out. I think it was like $199. And then they increased the price, which was weird. But I don't know. I just think that they could do it. And like people were willing to pay $600, not a lot of people, but people were willing to pay $600 for PSVR 2, and you needed to have a $500 PlayStation 5 to use that. I mean, I think they could get one for around $500 that could work powerful enough to be standalone.
Yeah, my thing is just like I feel like if you want it to become mainstream, it's got to be a lot cheaper. But I don't
But
know.
if they
think
want
we're
it to
gonna be-
become mainstream, like the mainstreamness of it is that Mario is now on VR. I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the popularity, and it's like it's kind of just like having a DS and a Wii. It's like, okay, you have this Wii for one thing, you have the DS for the other thing. They've got similar IPs, but they're different. They're standalone, and one serves a different purpose than the other.
So you guys kind of thinking of it as basically like a second pillar, like
Yeah, like a
going
second
back-
console, basically.
So basically what we're really talking about is Virtual Boy 2.
Essentially, yes.
And then that
All right.
Better.
Nintendo's R&D time if they have to develop it for a different platform and market and sell a different platform, and then
They've already done it, though. I know they shouldn't do it
I
again,
think
but
that
they've done it for
scenario,
years.
like the Virtual Boy 2 scenario, is way more likely than it launching with a piece of plastic with the strap on, whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
But you would love the strap on, Jake.
I think
Anyways,
you would like it more.
well, we'll see when we do
I
our
would like it. I'm not
2027
gonna lie.
predictions.
I'd enjoy it.
Yeah, 2 years, 3 years from now. Wait, I said 2027. That's 4 years from now. Whatever. No, 3 years because we're doing 2024. Anyway, let's move on because we haven't really touched on games at all, right?
Yeah.
So I have some things in mind, right? But I want to leave the floor open to you guys. Do you guys have any particular game predictions that are not certainties yet for 2024?
Is
Metroid Prime 2
ever
and
a
3.
certainty?
Metroid Prime
Jo-
2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with that. Paul,
Yeah,
what did you say?
I said, is Metroid Prime 4 ever a certainty or ever not a certainty?
Yeah.
Every
I
year,
wouldn't
feels
Become a
like-
certainty?
It's a popular choice, but it's not a certainty.
every year it's like this year makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
This year makes sense.
So my belief with Metroid Prime 4, I've said this before, but my belief with Metroid Prime 4 is that it's in the same scenario Tears of the Kingdom was the year prior. So we didn't know until after the fact, right? But interviews came out that Tears of the Kingdom was basically done March of 2022. And so I believe Metroid Prime 4 is in a very similar situation now where the game is basically done and they're just polishing it, getting it ready, positioning it for the right time to release it. And so that doesn't necessarily mean 2024. I think Nintendo could easily get it out in 2024. But if with Switch 2 coming out, right, and depending on the lineup of games and when that comes out, I hate to say this, but I do think there's a chance Prime 4 comes out in 2025. I'm not predicting that, but this is what I will predict. I will predict that we'll see Prime 4, and I agree with Josie. We are definitely getting Prime 2 and 3.
yeah.
I
That
also
was
predict.
my January 25th prediction for Metroid Prime 4. It fits up well. Last Friday of the month, it's the 5-year anniversary of when they announced the Retro Studios reboot. Could that be a day where they say Metroid Prime 2 and 3 HD ports coming? But also, we know you've been waiting. Here's Metroid Prime 4. Is it too much to ask for?
Kind of makes sense. I don't know.
No, I don't think
Give us
that's
a
too much.
Metroid Direct.
I don't think that's too much to ask for. I agree with Andres. I think it is possible that we might not get it until 2025. I think we're definitely going to see the game for 2024, and I think we're going to see it running on the new Switch console. I think it's going to be a cross-gen title. I think obviously Metroid is, it's not a big system seller, so there are a lot of people who like to think of that being like the big launch title, but I just think realistically, we're looking at more of like my big bet for a big launch game would either be a new mainline 3D open world Mario game or the next Mario Kart. I think make the most sense. And I will say, whatever the next big launch game is for the Switch successor, I think it's going to be a heavy hitter because I think Nintendo saw the power of launching a console with a juggernaut game like Breath of the Wild and then rounding out the year with another juggernaut. They talked about it a ton, about the software being the success of that launch. I think a 3D Mario makes a lot of sense, or a Mario Kart.
I agree.
that.
I think Mario.
What was
Kart
your
makes
other
a lot
one,
of sense.
Josie?
Oh,
Was that one of them?
I was gonna talk about Mario Kart, but yeah, I was thinking I'm like on the same page with Andres that we're gonna see Prime 4. Well, I'm thinking it's gonna come out next year, or not, like 2025, because I think we'll see it and I think it'll get announced. But I just feel like it's still gonna, like, for them to release those two other Metroid games and Prime 4 is what's kind of getting me hung up. I just feel like that's a lot of Metroid, and Nintendo usually doesn't do that much of it.
Counterpoint, Pikmin 4, right? Because
Yeah, and then 1 and 2.
is Prime 2 and 3 aren't going to be like big boy remasters like 1, right? Like they might be more like basic upscales. So if they kind of do something like Pikmin 1 and 2, then I could easily see that working. But if it is like more work being done to Prime 2 and 3, then yeah, I would agree that they're gonna spread it out a little bit.
I also think that Prime 4 will bring more people to Prime 1, 2, and 3 than those games will bring people to Prime 4. I think, like I said, it's not a very mainstream series. We're going to see this game looking beautiful, running on new tech, maybe with some new innovative ideas like Nintendo's been doing with their other big IP. And I think, if anything, it's going to be a matter of people playing the new one. And all the diehards are going to buy all the remasters of the old ones. But there's going to be I think there's going to be a late surplus in sales for those other games. I think we're going to do a little bit better with Prime 4, and then people are going to be like, oh, I want to see where this series started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I was just going to say.
No, go.
my whole generation, like I'm 20, right? So like all the people my age, we weren't really old enough to play Metroid 3 and understand what was going on, right? And so like now it would just make so much sense because so many of me and my friends are like getting into it. And if Metroid Prime 4 comes out, like it makes so much sense to have those games already on Switch to drive those sales as well, just like how you were talking about. So I completely agree.
I got another prediction related to Prime 4. I mean, so I want it to come out next year, and I'm not saying it won't, right? I'm not saying it's like unlikely. I'm just not ready to predict it, right? I do agree we'll see it, but assuming whenever it does come out, hopefully next year, I believe Metroid Prime 4 is going to have its Breath of the Wild moment. And when I say that, what I mean is before Breath of the Wild, the top selling Zelda games of all time were 7 to 8 million, right? And now Breath of the Wild is 30 plus, right? And Tears of the Kingdom, you know, a few years from now, maybe close to that as well. So like it multiplied the series potential. I think Metroid Prime 4, now Metroid hasn't been as big as Zelda, right? But I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be kind of like that moment for the Metroid series. And it's going to multiply its potential. Like maybe instead of it being a 2 to 3 million seller as it usually is when it's a real killer, we're talking about 8 to 10 million, you know? And so that's what I kind of believe. And I think Prime 4 is a really ambitious title from Nintendo. I think I've tried to make this comparison multiple times. Like the way they announced a delay, the only time Nintendo's ever put out a video to announce a delay for a game like Metroid Prime 4 is with Zelda. So to me, I think that the pedigree they want in this, it's supposed to be like in terms of quality, that's the level. And so my optimism tells me that when we see Prime 4, it's going to revolutionize the series, and it's going to be a big deal, regardless of whenever it does come out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I have a few other predictions. They're not my biggest predictions for launch is a 3D Mario and a new Mario Kart. But I think it's funny, we're talking about 2023 and what a year that's been for Switch. And it's hard to imagine a better year than that, especially in such a short turnover. But console announcements are a very exciting time, and getting that launch window / first year of the new console actually could be really, really promising. We're waiting on the next 3D Mario. We're waiting on the next Mario Kart, but we're also due for a new Donkey Kong game. We know that Donkey Kong Country Land is opening up at the theme park in Japan. And that's a big deal for Universal. They're going to be, I think they're adding that to the Florida park as well. Andres, you might know better than me if they are or aren't.
I don't know about the timing. Like it's going to come to all the parks from what I understand, but Japan is going to be first.
It's the first one. We know that they're branching off, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next animated Nintendo movie, we know Zelda's going to be live action. I wouldn't be surprised if the next animated one is a Donkey Kong specific movie where we get Diddy introduced, and you know Seth Rogen is Donkey Kong, so it's a popular character. A new DK. I also think Pokemon. I know we just got DLC, but kind of closing out the mainline Pokemon game, but what about another remake? We haven't seen a remake of Black or White. What about the possibility of a new line?
That's what Cameron gets for
that to be within the first year of a new console. You cut out for a little bit.
No, you're good. I missed the last sentence. What was the last sentence?
Oh, the last one was just that these things fit in line with kind of the timeline of what we've seen in development for these other titles. But care to elaborate? It's just exciting. Sorry.
I think a lot of us probably agree we're going to see some Pokemon stuff next year.
It's every year.
I want to go back to Doc. Yeah, I mean, literally every year. Like, that's the easiest prediction, right? But maybe the better prediction to make is what kind of Pokemon games we're getting.
I hope
this year.
They don't do the same thing as Switch and make their first Pokemon game a Let's Go. But that's kind of what's up next.
I would go. Let's get the hell out of here. I would.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope that they make a new Legends game.
That's what
I'd like to do that too. I liked Let's Go though. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, Legends will be next because
they did the window.
Legends in the Gen 4 world, and then they did the Gen 4 remakes. So it would make sense for like a Legends. I mean, if they did the same thing again, Gen 5, and then maybe like a Black and White 3, as opposed to just Black and White 1 and 2 remakes.
I mean, if they do Black and White 3, I think people would.
Yeah, Legends would make sense. They're there's been a lot of hints that it could be like a Legends Johto though as well. So I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I need to play the DLC because supposedly there's hints in there, right? But there's been a lot of hints thrown out for Generation 5, but then also maybe Generation 2.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's
a lot for
tough.
both.
I've argued that a Legends game has more sales potential than a Let's Go game. And I'll just briefly summarize here, right?
Yeah, of course.
You look at Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. It sold better than Legends, but only marginally. And that was 2 versions. It was the first HD Pokemon game ever, and it was
And that's when there was not as many games on Switch. Like when Legends came out, there were so many amazing Switch games. Let's Go was the only Pokemon game at the time, so that they were starving. They had to have something. And
you
so
made a really
people bought it.
I wanted to go back to you, Andres, but you made a really good point that I wanted to just double down on because I think it was really smart. It was the first Pokemon on a home console, essentially. We had all of them on the handhelds. I think that was a really big deal. So whether or not a Legends would have done better, who's to say? But I think that definitely impacted the sales of Let's Go. So I think
it definitely helped us.
Had it been the second or third Pokemon on the Switch, maybe Legends would have outsold it.
So let me just go over the sales numbers for games out here, right? So the 12th best-selling Pokemon game is Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee at 15.07. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, 2 versions, had the holiday promotion, 15.06. A game that was pushed out in January after the holidays with reduced sales potential, and only 1 version reducing its sales potential even more so. That is Legends Arceus, sold 14.83. So Legends Arceus, without having holiday sales, without having 2 different versions, sold just slightly worse than Brilliant Diamond that had those advantages.
And no real
multiplayer. Clamoring for years. What'd you say, Paul?
And no real multiplayer.
Yeah,
that could be a small inclusion in a Legends sequel.
Yeah, maybe like co-op. Co-op is maybe more conceivable. Actually, that's a good prediction. Co-op in the next Legends game that's coming out.
So much fun.
Yeah,
I love
that from Paul.
What's that?
No, Andre stole your idea.
Stole it, robbed it. Well, he said multiplayer. I adapted it to co-op.
Yeah, no.
How about let's call it a team prediction? Is that fair?
Yeah.
We came up with it for Nintendo.
Yeah, you wrote the paper, but you added me as a credit. That's
we worked. It was good.
Okay.
I want to add to the co-op. I'd love to see co-op in a new Legends game, but I'd love to see co-op where your progress when you're in someone else's game carries over to yours. When you catch Pokemon in someone else's game, you have those in your game, not you're just helping out your friend, and then when you go back to your own world, you don't have any fruits of your labor. I'd love to see one where all that stuff carries over. Like a seamless co-op experience would be wonderful, and I think would really push Pokemon forward, honestly.
I want to talk about Donkey Kong a little bit because you brought that up, and I think that is like almost a must-have. It's going to be 2024, so the last game came out 2014. Like, we are due for a new Donkey Kong, and I've been asking for this for so long, and do you guys think it's going to be 3D or 2D, or what are you guys thinking here? Because I kind of think they're going to play it safe and go 2D, but I don't really know.
I'm trying not to talk, but I can talk.
Well, I think it's going to be 3D.
Okay.
Why do you feel that way?
I mean, I guess we would really be due for either. I mean, technically the last one was 2D because it was Tropical Freeze, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that was in 2014 too.
Right. I know. So yeah, it's tough. It really could be either way, but I think it's going to be 3D.
I'm not sure if it's going to be 2D or 3D. What I do think, and this applies to Metroid Prime 4 as well as the next 3D Mario, I think there's going to be big innovations for the series. I don't think they're going to play it as safe with those 3 games because they've seen such great success from really innovating on the ideas. What does it mean to be a Donkey Kong game? What does it mean to be a Metroid game like they have with Zelda and Mario Wonder and Fire Emblem and some of those other titles? So I see big innovations, and I consider, to be fair, I don't necessarily mean it has to absolutely change the conventions of the game. I look at Mario Wonder as a very innovative take on the 2D Mario series, especially when you look at how stale the new Super Mario Brothers games were starting to look and feel and play. Just like I think Bowser's Fury, which might have some clues into it to the next 3D Mario, was a very innovative take on that kind of 2D Mario experience as well, where it opened things up more in a more playground setting.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't there like that leak? Like, there's been leaks about this game for like the last couple of years.
Which one are we talking about?
Donkey Kong, like where it was basically like an open world, like in a jungle, and like you can travel by like riding the vines, like Tarzan.
Yeah, I want to talk about that one because I remember it was actually that info was like popularized earlier this year. I made a few videos on it, and there was a lot of confusion about this, right? Like a lot of creators like looked into it, but only looked into it like surface level and kind of threw it.
I know there was like a fake like tech demo that someone made, and I think people were confusing them too.
Exactly. So there was someone, I'm actually friends with this person, right? And they like making fan videos of, I think they do it in dreams, of Donkey Kong. The code name for this project was Donkey Kong Freedom. And so there was already a knowledge of this existence of this project before earlier this year. And early this year it just got popularized. And so people were already kind of like talking about this. And there have been a few different sources. I actually think even Spawn Wave, when this came out, Josie, I don't know if you're aware, like he made a video, and if I remember correctly, he even said he heard similar things that Activision at one point.
She's aware. She knows. Okay.
Well, I don't know if she knew. She came onto the show later. But anyways, point is though, is that there have been a few credible people that have heard that there was an Activision project with Nintendo where they were working on some sort of Donkey Kong thing like that with some sort of Tarzan-like mechanics, but it was canceled. So it's not a real game. But I mean, and we've heard about all sorts of really cool games in the past that have been canceled, pulled, or changed, right? Like this is nothing really out of the ordinary. It's just usually most of the time it doesn't surface to the public. But that said, I think the fact that Nintendo was going to greenlight that project and that Miyamoto loved it, which is part of the story here, shows that Nintendo may have a willingness to do this, right? And you look at things like Kirby's Forgotten Land. Now, like it's like the best reviewed Kirby game, the best selling Kirby game. And what happened? They went ambitious with that. You know, they went in the 3D direction. And so you look at Breath of the Wild, more open, Mario Odyssey, more open, best selling games in the series. And so I do think that Nintendo would probably would have a better selling game if they were to go in the more ambitious 3D route if it was done right. But at the same time, Tropical Freeze is one of the best 2D games ever. And to your point, Cameron, from earlier, Mario Wonder is innovative, even though it's still 2D, right? Like you can still innovate without going 3D. But I think the main point is to make it feel fresh. And so however they choose to do that, that's what I'm not saying it's 3D. I don't know if it's 3D. Right, I know some of you because I like a while back I knew someone who worked at Nintendo that told me that this is in the works, but I don't know anything else about it. Right, I just think it makes sense. You look at the park and all that, and you know, like if Switch 2 is not coming out until at least the second half of next year, and we're gonna have a bit of a gap in between. I almost feel like maybe Donkey Kong would be like that last good, it could be like that last Switch game before Switch 2 comes out even. Like I'll just throw that as an idea. I don't know. And heck, even if it's 2D, like Josie, as you said, it's been 10 years. Like I would love to just have another Donkey Kong Country style game. Like,
that's also right. I don't know if they need to be that ambitious. I mean, I think they should, but all the other games that we're talking about, like those games had grown really stale because we had gotten so many new Super Mario Bros. Games. But I don't know if I'm like in the minority here, but I don't feel that the Donkey Kong Country like style has gotten stale at all. I feel like they're still some of the best 2D platformers. They will continue to be some of the best 2D platformers, even if it stays fairly familiar. I don't think it should.
They've always had both, and they do both with Zelda and Mario and Metroid. And I don't want them to change Donkey Kong. I want there to be 2D and 3D both coming out at the same time. Like we had Donkey Kong 64. And that was a game of my childhood, so that's why I want a 3D one, because I don't want them to change anything. I want them to bring that back, but modern. And then I still want there to be 2D games as well, because they are the best.
I definitely think there's it would be cool to have a place for both. And again, I think it could go either way. I think it would be cool either way. I think Nintendo would do a good job with it. Would do the game justice, whether it's 3D or 2D, but. I think as far as innovating, I mean, Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze were kind of an innovation for the series from the 2D perspective. They had a cool 3D mechanic where the levels were almost layered, where you could be deeper in a more three-dimensional space of the level. They also played around with some really cool art styles where your character's in a silhouette, but you have the red tie, and that was a lot of fun seeing the cool animations. They did a lot of really cool three-dimensional stuff with the barrel shooting in that game. So they made that game feel really fresh from the old classic Donkey Kong games. And again, I'd like them to just innovate so it doesn't feel like Tropical Freeze again, even though that game, like you said, Andres, is one of the best 2D games. Instead of it feeling like a sequel to that, it feels like if they go the 2D route, a new, fresh Donkey Kong experience, that Wonder experience. It doesn't have to be all weird and trippy like Wonder, but kind of, you know, a little bit of a facelift and some neat mechanic we've never seen in a 2D game, or the 3D route like you'd like, Jake. I think there's potential for some.
I want to mention that like you look at Metroid Dread, right? And Metroid Dread is 2D Metroid, but there are literally 3D over the shoulder moments, right? Like they do mix up the gameplay a little bit. And Nintendo's done this before with a few 2D games, but one of them one of the first ones they did it with was actually Jungle Beat, which is that game was made by the Mario Odyssey team before the Mario Odyssey team became the Mario, not Mario Odyssey, but Mario Galaxy. Like that's what they moved on afterwards. And Jungle Beat it's a side-scrolling Donkey Kong game, very similar to Country, but it has these boss fights where it pulls the camera behind Donkey Kong like over the shoulder, and it becomes like a 3D boxer. And so that the idea has been already done before, but like that's kind of one way you can maybe do like a 2D Donkey Kong game. Like imagine introducing a game that's basically like Tropical Freeze, but has like 3D boss fights, for example, or moments. Like, I mean, Tropical Freeze does have 3D moments, but they're not playable moments. They're just like cutscenes, but maybe have some playable moments and maybe make it more of a hybrid. I think that would be a cool way to go about it.
Yeah.
So
I still just want both, like just regular.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. That we should also give us Diddy Kong Racing.
Dude, please.
Where the hell is Diddy Kong Racing, dude?
I got
That
a
should be
prediction
on Switch Online. That should be on Switch Online. Sure.
Well, the thing is, the fact that we recently got another rare game in Jet Force Gemini, that gives me a lot of hope. We have now 2 rare games. We have 3 rare games.
4. Wait, do we have Banjo-Tooie or just Kazooie?
Yeah.
Just Kazooie.
Not yet. Just
Kazooie,
okay.
GoldenEye, which no one thought would happen, but we got that, and then Jet Force Gemini. Like we could get more rare games, and that's exciting, right? So you know what? Oh, that's a prediction right there. I predict more rare games for Nintendo Switch Online. That seems safe, but that's what I'm going for.
I like it.
Yeah, but I'm gonna throw out another prediction for you guys. We're going to see another Nintendo racer next year, and it's not going to be Mario Kart. I know y'all want Mario Kart. I want Mario Kart as well. It's been a long time since the new one, and I do think it's coming. I think the next Mario Kart's coming out. I'm going to predict early 2025, but this is not the early 2025 prediction show. This is 2024. I think because of the DLC, they're going to space it out a little bit, but still come out early. But instead, next year, I think we're getting F-Zero GX Remaster.
Which one?
F-Zero GX Remaster.
Oh.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that's a great prediction, Andres. Yeah.
F-Zero 99, like it's interesting because like Josie, you were talking about earlier how like we've seen Pikmin a lot, like with Pikmin Bloom in the park and stuff. And I personally believe that was part of Nintendo's marketing plan, right? Like kind of like put Pikmin out there in different places and build up to it, right? So they had the Pikmin in the park, they had Pikmin Bloom, the mobile app, and they had Pikmin 3 Deluxe. And now we have Pikmin 4. It's the best-selling Pikmin game to date. So I think, there's merit to that idea, right? And now we have the Donkey Kong Park, we have Donkey Kong in the movie. I think they have something going on with Donkey Kong, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if this thing could maybe be said for F-Zero. I think Nintendo actually does care about their lesser-known IP, and I think what they really want, they want to turn Metroid and Donkey Kong and Pikmin and maybe F-Zero into better-selling franchises. Why wouldn't they? That means there are other developers can put out games and sell more on them, right? And then that also opens the door for more movies and things of that nature. So I think it's all cyclical here. And so we look at F-Zero 99, right? We look at the variety of Captain Falcon references and all the Smash Ultimate hype. I think that there is a little bit of a buildup here, and I wouldn't be surprised if this rumored GX remaster we've heard about for a while now does come out next year.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a beloved character in Smash, especially, that I feel like a whole new generation would find like so much love with F-Zero if they were given the opportunity to play it. So I think that it's just such a no-brainer for Nintendo, and I really I agree with you. I hope it comes out.
Please. Please.
I mean, they've been digging
I
into
can't
the
believe
GameCube
no
library.
one said the Ocarina of Time 3D remaster yet, or remake.
Don't you oh, well, I'm trying to be quiet, man.
Yeah.
I
was just waiting for every obvious one to be said, and we're just waiting for that one.
So you're pulling that one out? We doing it?
I mean, might as well. Monkey's out of the bottle now.
All right. So I prefer to refer to this as a theory, but there are some rumors to it too. Just watch my videos or watch other people's videos. Like I think
predictions.
Yeah, I predict the Ocarina of Time remake is happening. Yeah. I don't necessarily predict it's coming out next year, though. My thinking with Ocarina of Time remake is that you look at the history of Nintendo putting out Zelda remasters, or just let's say repurposing, right? Because in this case, I think it would be a remake. They happen within the first year and a half of a console when they close out a generation with a major Zelda beforehand, right? So we're closing out this generation with Tears of the Kingdom. I think that there's going to be some sort of Zelda remake within about a year and a half-ish. Let's extend that to 2 years because things tend to be a little bit longer now. And so I do think there's a really good chance it's Ocarina of Time remake when you look at all the Onuma interviews and things of that nature. But I guess the reason why I wouldn't necessarily predict it for 2024 is just because, well, if we're going to get 3D Mario, potentially Metroid Prime 4, and if the system's not coming out until September, like I think something's got to give. That's too many single player experiences in the row. I think they got to space that out a little bit. However, showcasing, like if we have a teaser trailer that shows off multiple epic Nintendo games, and one of them, and then they show off like a remake of Ocarina of Time, so it'll look like a modern game, it'll look amazing. That would excite a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I'll say this. While I don't expect it to come out next year, I think there's a chance it's a part of like that initial Switch 2 promotion, or in the September Direct of this year where they're going to show us a couple big games for the year after. I think that could be one of them.
Man, it's like you put thought into this. Crazy.
Well, I got a question for you guys. What's Grezzo been working on? Where's Grezzo?
Maybe that's what they've
been. Wait, I'm dumb.
Top-down Zelda.
And other than the team that made Ocarina of Time, who knows Ocarina of Time better than Grezzo, who rebuilt the game for the Nintendo 3DS? It's like a match made in heaven.
I do want to clarify on something, right?
Yeah,
that you're right. But I've had this argument with people. Ocarina of Time 3DS is a remaster,
right?
I've gone and read the Nintendo Q&As from then, from what was it, 2011?
Sure.
Yeah, 2011. And they talk about reusing the source code, right? They build upon the source code. So that is objectively a remaster. It's a fantastic remaster, but that's what it is. And it was also nearly 13 years ago. So
it was more than a basic remaster because they added like functions and controls.
Oh no, it was a heck of a remaster. I'm just saying it's not a remake.
Yeah.
I just want to make that distinction. That's all.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point and a good distinction to make. But again, like they had their hands on the original source code, they got to play around with it, they got to add new features and new, at least control mechanics to it. They know that game really, really well. I can't think of a better team other than the mainline Zelda team, which I know they're already knees deep into the next Zelda project.
I'll throw out another developer though. Right. And
sure.
I think, sometimes we might get stuck in like, oh, that has to be one developer. Like you look at Retro Studio. Yes, Retro Studios, but Metroid Prime Remastered, there was like 4 developers that worked on that game.
Sure.
And so Monolith Soft has been hiring for Zelda development for years, technically. And we don't know for a fact if that was just for Tears of the Kingdom. And so who knows? Like, what if it's a collaborative effort? There's a little bit of Grezzo, there's a little bit of the main Zelda team, even though they're working on something else. Maybe just a little bit of an overseeing, and Monolith Soft. Like, they could be a collaborative effort, as we see with a lot of Nintendo games.
And then you have Bandai Namco or someone handling G commissions.
Yeah, there we go.
Get some
That'd be awesome.
Action stealth cool stuff
Yeah.
that happens on the side when Link is in his slumber.
No, that's a fun idea. I mean, Bandai Namco is working on a few Nintendo games too. But let me ask you guys though, right? So I think Ocarina of Time remake, I'm predicting it as a 2025 thing, right? That's a prediction. I don't actually know. But do you guys think it's coming out next year, or you think we're getting something else Zelda next year?
I don't think the big old remake is coming out. I feel like it makes a lot of sense to tie it with the next Switch though, like to put it in that reel or whatever they do to get people really excited that this is like, sort of like the future of Zelda, even though it is a remake, but they show us like something really amazing, right?
Right, it just looks awesome.
I
Yeah.
hate to say that I don't want it to be on Nintendo Switch because at this point we've seen what Nintendo Switch can do visually, and Ocarina of Time stayed my favorite game of all time for a solid 19, 20 years until Breath of the Wild finally dethroned it. So I want them to go big, bold, as good of a remake as they can handle without being held back in any kind of specs. Not to say that that can't also happen on the Switch successor, but less likely to happen.
I have a question for you guys. What comes first,
Hmm.
the 3D remake or the next 2D Zelda? I'm not saying either one comes in 2024, but which one do you think comes first?
I see, this is tricky, right? Because I know a lot of people want Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and where do those fit into the picture, right? But that Nash Weedle tweet where he said CZR 2024, my first interpretation, or one of my early interpretations, was a Capcom Zelda remake. And I actually love the idea of us getting a remake, maybe by Grezzo, as you were alluding to earlier, Cameron, of like either Minish Cap or Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Like that would be great.
And they could sell both versions again, like Pokemon.
Yes, and it could be a Switch title, right? It could be something that comes out for Switch because they're going to want to have some Switch games,
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of them probably going to be remasters and remakes, and that could potentially, outside of Pokemon.
You know what, man? That's a good point. That the next Zelda
year
is on Switch and Switch 2. Whatever
if
it
it's
is,
2D,
that kind of makes sense.
If it's 2D Zelda,
yeah,
and
that's
so
what I mean. Yeah.
I love the timeline of that, right? Like, what if we did? Let's say we get, just to keep it simple, I'll say Minish Cap because it's one version, but it could be either or, right? Let's say they remake Minish Cap, comes out next year. That's hype, right? It sells like Link's Awakening 4 to 5 million, which is pretty good. You can play it on Switch too, but it is a Switch game. It's one of the last Switch games that comes out next year. It's like close to holiday. And then that's like, that way people aren't upset about, they moved on from Zelda so quickly, right? And then next year, right, 2025, like, oh yeah, we got this other remake, but it's a 3D one. And then at that point, it's maybe been enough time that people aren't going to be upset. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a remake coming. I'm not sure that it's Ocarina of Time. I'd love to believe that. I mean, I think if there is a Zelda game to remake, Ocarina of Time is the one to do, because that kind of, sat on the pedestal as the greatest Zelda for probably 90% of gamers until Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom for some people. The only other one that I think would be fantastic to see, and again, that's not to say I wouldn't like to see the Capcom games. I think those would be awesome to have remade. Even a reimagining of Zelda 2 would be really cool, especially since it's a game a lot of people don't like. It would be cool for them.
2D Dark Souls, basically.
If they rebuilt it and made it a little bit more approachable, it might be kind of cool. But I think that if I could pick two games to remake, it would be Ocarina of Time at the top, and then number 2 would actually be Link to the Past, but built in that HD 2D kind of Squaresoft Octopath type of engine, I think would be beautiful, because I think Link to the Past, it has a timeless look. The pixel art holds up to this day. So if they were to mess with that one, I think the HD 2D with orchestrating the soundtrack would be the way to go.
Well, the other thing is, I know it doesn't need this, but the first thing people are going to be asking for once they see the Ocarina of Time remake, once they actually see what that looks like, the first thing people are going to be begging for is Majora's Mask to get the same treatment.
It's going to be a long time before the next new Zelda, so maybe. I mean, I think we're years away before an actual new 3D Zelda, right? So Nintendo's going to need several things to kind of do this. So if we got a 2D Zelda remake, we eventually get maybe Wind Waker, Twilight Princess down the road. We get and maybe we get 2, 3, like a lot of remakes. Let's do it. Sure.
But there's a lot of Zelda games that could use remakes, so it's like it's not too much.
No,
I don't think.
And
I
usually
mean, look
Nintendo
at
has a Zelda
Capcom with
game
the
per
Resident
year.
Evil series.
Yeah.
They're pumping
Oh.
out their remakes to like wild success.
And people love them, right? I love them. They're awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm for it.
It also
But I
takes those games that are so unapproachable by like a lot of gamers today and
Sure.
gives them to a new generation. I would not dream of playing Zelda 2, but they remake it, make it good, make it better. Yeah, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Jake. I think people would start clamoring for a Majora's Mask. I mean, I'm one of those people. You can see I've got a big Majora's Mask back there. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And I'll even add this. I understand that Majora's Mask isn't for everyone, but everyone gives Breath of the Wild most of, if not all, the credit of really turning Zelda over on its head. And I think Majora's Mask did it first. That game was way ahead of its time with the time mechanics, the Groundhog's Day thing, the way they had all the different interconnected storylines that changed based on what you did on each day at each time, depending on what master it. Like that game was so complex and so innovative for the time. Man, I would love to see them tackle a game that uses similar mechanics in the Zelda universe again, especially in a modern setting.
Yeah.
Love it. So Paul, I don't know if you got a chance to is there any, do you differ from our Zelda takes here? Is there something you kind of think we could see Zelda related next year?
Paul's going to drop the exact date and title of the next Zelda game.
Here we go. What are you theorizing?
Break out the numbers.
There's only one thing that I know of, not Zelda game, but something Zelda related that is coming out that hasn't been officially released yet.
All right, let's go.
But I can't talk about that. Maybe.
Okay, can you draw a picture about that?
I don't know.
Can you sing about
Can
that?
you draw two pictures on that?
Can you give us like a haiku or like a rhyme that?
Can you draw it in 4K at 60 FPS collection pack? And can you draw it in shutting up everyone who's been clamoring for it for the last 3 years?
I mean, anybody could draw it. I mean, I guess you could draw
There it is. Confirmed. Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD 4K.
No, you can draw it right now and then hold up your picture to the camera, right?
Yeah.
It's not talking about it.
Game wise, though, I really would have. I mean, it would be unrealistic for it to have come out this year, but that was the sweet spot. 25th anniversary of Ocarina of Time. Like, oh, how fitting would it be, you know? But I would still love it. Love for it to happen.
Yeah. So what is it? So July 3rd or what? Come on.
No.
Look, he's so quiet. He knows, man.
Okay, so here's my question for you, because I feel like this is one that you can answer and it doesn't give anything away. With this particular subject, is it on a scale of 1 to 10 hype level? What is it for people? Where would you guess the people would be? Would they be at
I'm not even sure you
3
can
or
do
4?
that. I don't even know if you can do that. I don't think you can do that.
Some people will think it's the coolest thing ever, and some people will care less.
Okay.
I'm not to say it's that polarizing, but
playing hardball. I get it.
I mean,
Triforce Heroes 2, baby. It's coming.
Oh, man. The thing is, some people hate Tears of the Kingdom, and that's arguably like the biggest, best thing in the last half decade, at least for Nintendo. So
maybe he's alluding to the Wind Waker Twilight Princess finally coming out, and it's just a port. It's not like
not 4K 60, not a collection pack.
I gotta say, Jake, you joked about
right there, my friend Paul.
What was that?
Jake, you
seems like a little bit of a nod right there. Little head bob.
Jake, you joked about Triforce Heroes 2, but I will add that Four Swords Adventure, a brand new one with like the 3D isometric top-down Zelda graphics, online multiplayer doing the dungeon crawling with friends would be sick, in my opinion. I think that would be rad, a brand new Four Sword Adventure. And with Joy-Cons, you take it to a friend's house, you got 4 people right there, 4 Joy-Cons, Four Sword Adventures. Where is it? We know it's coming. 2025, baby. But this is about 2024, so we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Alright.
I had a minor brain blast. Maybe I should save this for my dedicated predictions video later, but I'll just say it anyway.
Yeah, come on.
Blast
No,
us.
it's nothing that crazy. It's just a collection of 2 Zelda games. That's my brain blast. I think the Nash Weedle CZR 2024 is collection Zelda remasters 2024.
Oh,
That's just
Yeah.
a prediction.
That's a very exciting.
but the thing is,
prediction.
dude, they can get
Hope
away
that's
with
true.
charging individual remasters for almost full price, if not full price. So why
They
would they
could-
bundle them unless they make the bundle like $200?
I bet I don't know. I don't know how they'll
Because
handle it.
Because Nintendo leaves money on the table. Why release a bundle of Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, and Mario Sunshine?
Because they
and
only do it
only
for
a
1 year
limited
and then they
time?
never do it again. That's the catch.
Yeah. But if they sold those on the eShop, I think it would have done better in the longer years. Personally, maybe I'm wrong, but
Oh yeah.
I'll just point this out. I don't know if I would call this a prediction, but there's a recent rumor coming from Nash Weedle that apparently Bayonetta will receive a trilogy edition on Switch 2 with visual and performance improvements.
That'd be
cool.
kind of rad.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
especially because
Mario
Bayonetta
Plus
3
Rabbids
still had some
makes
issues
that
with the
as well.
performance. Mars, that's a good one too. So yeah, Sparks of Hope.
Sold more.
Yeah. Actually, maybe that's what they're gonna do because I think that's on record. Like Ubisoft's actually disappointed with the sales of Sparks of Hope, and supposedly
Mhm.
Nintendo actually advised that they hold it back, and they didn't. And so maybe what they're gonna do is double dip. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
You think of a new Warriors game. I feel like that could be a 2024.
Xenoblade Warriors.
Super
Mushroom
Mario
Kingdom
Warriors.
Warriors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mario
Well,
Warriors would
I
be
want to
sick.
see Bowser
Agreed.
holding a chain chomp that's swinging it around.
Ooh, that would be fun. Yeah.
That's a cool image right there.
How
And
about
then they
Wave
do-
Race Warriors? Everyone just fights on jet skis.
Yeah, but it's like Road Warriors, so it's like post-apocalyptic jet skis. It works,
There you go. Yeah, you have killer dolphins with lasers.
right?
Yeah, it'd be fun. So I don't have any predictions off the. I'm sure I might have another brain blast, but is there anything else you guys want to predict before we move on to our Q&A?
Yeah, Paul, do you care to predict exactly what you think the next Zelda game will be, end date?
Well, I didn't say Zelda game necessarily, but Zelda related.
Oh, saying a lot right there. Thank you, sir.
So it's a little bit more.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'll take it.
Watch. It's going to be like the reveal of the casting for the Zelda movie. It's like not a game at all.
It'd be pretty
They're going to announce like the
Could be.
actors playing.
No,
Could
Paul's
be.
took his head at that one. It's not it.
Could be just a Zelda Lego set.
I've got a final, very like kind of small predictions for the
Sure.
Switch successor. First two ones are kind of small, but I predict we'll get wallpapers, like backgrounds that we can do
On Switch
On
2 or
the-
both?
on Switch 2. I'm not
Okay.
sure about both. Maybe both. That would be cool. But I think we'll get backgrounds. People have wanted it for so long. Nintendo, obviously, with the hardware, they wanted their UI to be super snappy. We didn't get it. So that's one. Maybe some music in there too. And then the other one, this is an old prediction, Andres, that I've actually made on your podcast. I think 2 or 3 times years ago. So it didn't pan out, but I'm throwing it out there again because I think it's great. When there were a lot of rumors, pre-pandemic of Switch Pro, I predicted that Nintendo was going to announce a new line of Joy-Cons alongside the Switch Pro called Pro-Cons, and it has enhanced HD rumble, more comfortable, like a better grip, a little bit less cheap or toy-like feeling. So my prediction for Switch 2 is that we're going to get an enhanced version of the Joy-Con, and Nintendo's even going to name them the Pro-Cons.
Dude, I hope that they're like squishy.
You know what? You know how
Like little-
squishy they'd be?
Like stress balls.
Yeah.
That's
I
neat.
wish I had my Switch right now.
And dude, like you're like playing a game and then like you have to like strangle Kirby's and like you just do it with a Joy-Con.
Instead of mashing the button like you do,
Yeah.
you're squishing as fast as you can.
Is actually very interesting.
Maybe
Oh, do you
the-
like it? Do you like it?
Maybe the Nintendo Switch 2 is like this.
Made Dad proud today.
It folds in on itself so that the top left Joy-Con fits into an indentable ABXY, and then the bottom right ABXY is
Dude,
indented.
it's so
so
funny.
that-
I was thinking there would be like magnetic connectors to the sides, but also, you know how you can play some arcade games a long way on Switch,
Mhm.
and you can use like the flip grip thing.
Garuga,
Like I imagine like they can also just attach like that, so it's similar to what you said, but instead of like doing that, you flip the system and then just attach them there, and that's how you play the DS and 3DS games and like
and then it could
any
fold
other
in
dual screen games on the go.
Game Boy Advance
Yeah.
SP style.
Yeah,
There's your extra way how to be portable. It just folds long ways on itself.
yeah.
That's the gimmick. It's a foldable
Confirmed.
screen that you could hold it
Confirmed.
sideways for those types of games, and then long ways for portability
And they're squishy.
and squishy.
All right, so Squishy Pro Cons, got it.
Maybe the HDS, the S stands for squishy.
Yes.
I'm taking it all
What?
the way
There we
Wait,
go.
no.
high definition.
love-
squishy.
I love that. The Nintendo Squish. I love it.
Dude,
It's
that
so
actually
catchy.
sounds so good. What the
Yeah,
heck?
it's good.
The squish,
Dude,
the
we
squish.
might be onto something.
Of the
Someone
150
in the
people
chat
watching
had one
right
that was
now,
pretty
there's
good I
someone
hadn't
with
heard
their
earlier.
notes that works at Nintendo.
They said it's like
Okay,
two
we're gonna do
screens that
this,
pull apart, and it's
Yeah.
the Nintendo Split.
the
So it's
Nintendo
like a
Split.
Switch, but it splits apart.
And the
No,
controls
I
are
like the
shaped like
Switch
bananas.
better. That's
Well,
awesome.
then Nintendo. Well, it'd be funny if they did call it the Nintendo Split, and Cameron's right, and we get two OLED panels. They just split off. Nintendo Split. It's
No
interesting.
way. No way.
Yeah, no way.
All right.
But we go back when I was young and immature, back in 2016, where I thought that the Eurogamer report was wrong about the hybrid system. Who knows? Maybe we're still young and immature, and we think Cameron's wrong, but he's
Oh.
actually right.
Dude, this reminds me of the conversation we had of what we thought the Switch were going to be called, and I never made my alternate OnlyFans account called the Nintendo Bitch. I've got to do that.
It's not too late yet.
Again,
It's not
I'll
too
just
late.
say
just gotta claim the name.
someone at Nintendo's watching this and sweating bullets right now because we're
Can't believe they
basically
can't.
leaking everything.
Yeah, they're probably like, man, Josie's just leaking everything that Nintendo's
Yeah.
gonna do. What the hell?
How they know
Yeah.
it's gonna be insane.
Hurt my chances at being a Nintendo ambassador for sure.
I hear it's overrated, so you'll probably be fine.
All right.
If OJ can do it, you can do it. Don't worry.
OJ
Oh,
hypes
that's-
it up so much.
That is a good point.
Seems
yeah.
so chill.
Yeah. So I got at least one more prediction, but I want to leave it open to you guys, and maybe you'll steal it from me. So I'll have to come up with another. You guys got anything else?
I
Anything
really
else
want to
to
steal
think?
yours. It would be awesome. But I don't
I
know.
have a prediction that we're going to get a new Box Boy game because Hell Laboratories likes to do weird, random stuff when they're not
Okay.
making a Kirby game, and we haven't had a Box Boy since 2019, and it is one of my favorite games on Switch. So I hope we get more.
Oh,
Okay. I think
Tamagotchi
it's a good
Life
one.
2 also.
Oh, that'd be lit.
Yeah.
Wow, those are predictions that are solid. I actually the Tamagotchi Life sold so well on 3DS. Like,
Dude,
that makes
that's
sense.
so many people's like favorite game ever. It's such a good game.
Yeah.
This isn't so much a prediction, but I'll just throw this in as my last thing. This is more of like a thing I'd love to see Nintendo do down the line. Is they experimented with lending out their IP to other companies. Obviously, we got Mario and Rabbids, we got Star Fox in the Atlas game, we got Zelda lent out to an indie game for the Cadence of Hyrule and Hyrule Warriors and stuff.
The Crypt of the
I would
Necromancer.
actually love to see Nintendo. It's similar but different. Instead of lending a big IP out, doing a crossed worlds with two of their IP. On a modern game. Throwing. I don't know what it would be.
Dude, Kingdom Hearts, but Nintendo characters. with,
Having some sort of worlds collided, Nintendo Worlds Collided type game. Like you said, Kingdom Hearts was the concept I was looking for. I would love to see a Nintendo version of something like that, where you're just seeing all of those.
Yeah.
I mean, we have that
With
obviously
Mario Rabbids,
with
you're right.
Smash,
They
but
can-
something story driven, more of an adventure. I'd love to see that.
Okay. All right. Got anything
You
else,
know what
guys?
would be really cool? Remember the Mario and Luigi RPGs that they don't make anymore? It'd be so cool to see them bring back that, but collab it with another universe. The way they took the Rabbids with their strategy RPG.
Ooh, Olimar and Louie RPG.
Wait, say it again.
Olimar and Louie. I actually love Olimar and Louie because they're kind of like they're similar to Mario and Luigi in terms of like physical like traits,
Stature.
but in terms of character, Louis, I mean, Luigi, like there's, Louis is such an interesting character because he's the antagonist, but he's not necessarily a bad person. He's just an idiot, and so I kind of love it. And so I would love to see a game like maybe like a side game, of Olimar and Olimar and Louis, or what if it was Olimar and Louis and Mar and Luigi? Like it's like this universe where all of them are together and like some sort of like side spin-off RPG project.
That's weird because I was thinking like Nintendo combining with another company's like character.
Okay, you're
But
thinking
you
about
mean,
like
Inter Nintendo.
why do you make it sound weird?
Sorry.
That's okay. I don't know. Well, we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. That's a thing. There's Mario Rabbids. That's also a thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking Inter Nintendo.
It's been done
As
before.
well.
Yeah. I mean, there was Starlink also. Star Fox characters in Starlink. So
Yeah.
it's definitely been done. And well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it'd be cool if we got Pokken Tournament 2.
Oh
And
god,
they
yeah,
included,
I love
like,
that.
What if they include like a Tekken character or something? Or they include the bear?
We get
That would never
Kazuya.
happen. Oh, that'd be crazy. Oh my gosh. I would love it.
We need
That'd be
Mega
cool.
Man. We need Mega
Dude,
Man.
I want them to add like the rival trainers into Pokken 2. So you can just like beat the crap out of them with
Oh yeah,
Pokemon.
they're in the training mode, so they're just a sandbag. Right? You just beat them up, like we're just ragdoll physics. That would be fun. They'll never do that because Pokemon, but I would love
Dude,
it.
Pokemon Gold and Silver, Lance's Dragonite beats the crap out of a Team Rocket guy. With cannon.
I love that. Okay, I'm gonna throw out some predictions. I predict that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is also a Switch 2 game. I predict Visions of Mana is also a Switch 2 game. I predict that Monster Hunter Wilds, while it's not coming out next year, we will get confirmation that it is coming to Switch 2 next year. And I also predict this one's I'm a little more shaky on, but I think Elden Ring's going to come to Switch 2, and because there's not going to be a major single player, well, maybe there's not going to be like a new Zelda thing. I think they're going to treat the Elden Ring release on Switch 2. Maybe they'll do it. It'll be kind of like when they had Skyrim come out in 2017, where they put like a Link skin. Maybe I predict that there'll be an Elden Ring port to Switch 2, and there'll be some sort of Zelda cosmetic. And then my final prediction is there will be a Mario Sports title next year. We see Camelot come out with Mario Sports titles every 3 years. 2024 would be that next window. And so we've seen them iterate on soccer, golf, and tennis. I was going to say baseball.
What if,
Mario Sluggers.
because the relevancy of this series, well, it was once main tier, has now fallen to the bottom, and because it's a company that has a really good relationship with Nintendo, what if Master Chief's universe is in Metroid Prime 4?
I vomited inside. Sorry.
You vomited inside?
Oh, how dare you? I will tell you this. I wouldn't be
hit
surprised if we finally see that Nintendo Fortnite crossover.
That'd be so
True.
great.
Yeah. Remember those rumors that Samus was in Fortnite?
Yeah.
And then later we saw a Fortnite leak where there was actually like some Samus artwork. It was
That's
fan
so
made,
rad.
but
I
like,
remember all that, yeah.
It was at
I-
least pitched, and now we've heard recently that they are trying to communicate with Nintendo, but Nintendo's like, yeah, but we don't want to put our IP on other platforms.
Yeah.
I think so, at some point they'll figure something out, though.
That might be a cool way to bring attention to Prime 4 before it comes out. Fortnite's huge. So many people play Fortnite still.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people who play it, but like, who the hell is Samus? And if they make her fun and cool, give her a cool ball roll, charge cannon, her grapple whip and stuff like that, missiles, homing missiles and stuff like that. Like, I think people are going to be like, oh, I want to check out this character more. This character,
Maybe her pickaxe could be like the grapple beam. That would be neat.
right?
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Oh, man, I would love
Well,
that.
dude, when they add characters to Fortnite like that, they don't give them these all abilities. They put items all over the map that have all those abilities. So
Right,
they're
right,
like,
I don't play Fortnite, so
but no
I'm just
matter
guessing.
what skin you're wearing, you still get access to them.
Sure, but the
Right,
pickaxe,
there's a power-up where
every
you can
enemy
bring
had.
the ball, like her season.
It was really cool when Dragon Ball came out. You could pick up the Kamehameha and fly.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I did love that. The Nimbus.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
When Star Wars, you had the lightsabers. That was sweet.
I love
Yep.
the lightsabers.
And then Spider-Man, the
the whip.
web
Yeah.
slingers.
Yeah. I do have a hard time believing Nintendo would be like, yeah, sure, you can put in power-ups of Samus, right? Like, I think we'd be lucky if we just got a skin of Samus.
Dude, I think it's a win-win. I think it helps them both.
I think
Yeah.
it does, but Nintendo just has this philosophy of being extremely protective of their IP. And the moment they start to allow their IP to be available on competitors' platforms, it starts to get a little iffy.
Do you think it would be more likely for that to happen in Fortnite or for them to just do the same thing? Because the only competitor they have in Fortnite is like Splatoon. So for them to do the same thing in Splatoon 3 before.
See, I don't even
not
think
sure I
that's a
understand the question.
competitor at all because it's such a different beast of a game.
Yeah.
I just mean seeing Samus on an Xbox. That Nintendo doesn't like that.
Maybe it's exclusive to the Switch version of Fortnite.
And that's the problem Epic will have. They're like, no, we want this across all
Yeah,
versions.
That's where they're gonna have a disagreement because Nintendo will be like, no, we only want Samus on Nintendo.
I mean,
consoles.
like, I think, for example, you're only able to, like, maybe they could make a deal where you can only buy it on Switch or you can only buy it on a Nintendo account. But if you already have it associated with your Epic account, you can play it regardless of platform. Like, maybe that's the middle ground.
Yeah, that's another thing where I feel like they'd like have a disagreement there. But honestly, like it's so dumb that Nintendo thinks that way because it would be nothing but good marketing to have Samus on Xbox and PlayStation because it's gonna make those players interested in looking at the game. But I wish Nintendo felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Nintendo's so protective of their IP, right? You look at what they're doing in the movies and the parks; like they have such a grand vision. They believe in the power of their IP. I think we all believe in the power of their IP, right? Some of us just don't think it's a big deal if they put Samus in Fortnite, but Nintendo's old school in some ways. I'm pulling for it though, but
yeah,
they're just extremely careful.
I think it could do wonders because it also could give the Samus or give like the Metroid IP exposure to like kids and stuff because not a lot of kids even know what that is.
Right. No, it's an interesting point. Like, I mean, it would be cool, like, especially because it's Fortnite's a shooter. Like, there's some crossover there, right? And then if people are like, playing on PlayStation or Xbox and they see the Samus character and they see the trailers of Metroid Prime 4 and the reviews and all that and the Game Award nominations, like, oh man, this is like a hype game, especially if it has multiplayer. If Prime 4 has multiplayer, like that would, I know a lot of Metroid fans would hate to see multiplayer at Metroid Prime, but listen, Metroid Prime 2 actually had an amazing single player and still had multiplayer. It really just comes down to are they willing to put in the resources to get a good single player campaign, which I know they will do. But the question is, will they have even more resources left over to put into multiplayer as well?
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think if they do multiplayer, I could literally change the game and it could make that such a huge IP and like a cultural movement for people. Like it could be, if anything could be the next Fortnite, it's Metroid. So it could have some crazy popularity out there and do very, very well, especially if they market it correctly, I think.
Yeah, and imagine if they even like don't do something that's like different. Like would I like just have like team deathmatch? Sure. But like what if they kind of rethought it? Like what if they made it like maybe team based or like there's like, oh, we're all getting attacked by Metroid, so we have to fight together. Like they could make it interesting and not like every other sci-fi shooter.
Do you guys remember where Metroid, the one on the DS? Oh, Prime Hunters.
Yeah.
Dude, that one was sick.
That was technically a hero shooter, right?
It was so cool to aim with the just like shoot with the
stylus.
But also, the multiplayer was amazing. It was like 4 players.
Think you pull that off on a handheld back then?
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
No, I agree with you guys. I think I personally don't generally care for multiplayer shooters. It's not really my bag of tea with games. There are a few exceptions to that. I really love Splatoon. That's a different beast, but I would love to see a really well thought out, great multiplayer mode in a Metroid game because it's a franchise that I want to do better and I want to succeed. And I definitely believe that multiplayer would bring in bigger audiences and bigger crowds. As far as
impacting the single player, right?
without impact, always without impacting the single player. That's one of the reasons why I hate when they cram multiplayer stuff into what's supposed to be a great single player experience. But going back to the Fortnite thing, and like, even though
that's actually why I shared Giovanni's chat here, because he pointed out that they did put a Metroid car in Rocket League too. I think I remember that. And I think you were able to play on other platforms. So would that really be that different from a Fortnite crossover? Maybe not.
I will say this though, like, even if Nintendo's not willing to put Samus in a game like Fortnite, even though it would mean a lot of exposure for the character and possible increase in sales, they might be thinking of it now with where their business model's going. Like, hey, we've got an entertainment segment. We have Nintendo Pictures. We're going to be able to promote our characters through movies and possibly shows or whatever form these projects take. Obviously, Mario was the second highest grossing animated movie of all time. They might see an avenue of like, maybe we'll do a Metroid anime or a live action Metroid like they're doing with Zelda.
Metroid horror movie, please.
Right.
Please.
Right. And I don't know. I feel like they might be looking at some of the ways with some of the other pillars within their company with the more entertainment side of like, we don't really need Fortnite to expand the popularity because we have these other avenues now that we didn't have before. And hell, you know, sometimes it's just one game away from making something more mainstream. Look at Fire Emblem, how much that series has grown since Awakening on the 3DS, where it was super niche. Like no one, like there was no huge main popularity. And then you had Awakening, and now it's even more popular after Three Houses. And Xenoblade's another one it's growing and growing with every release in popularity. So Prime 4, they might be like, we've got a winner on our hands with retro, and we in the background have some sort of media, whether it's a movie or show, planned for Metroid. We're not worried about this character getting exposure.
I just want to say that a Xenoblade anime, a Fire Emblem anime, a Splatoon anime, like do some deal with Netflix or Crunchyroll. Those will really push those franchises. But I do feel we should move on to the Q&A. I don't want to go on too long here, because Paul's dying. We don't want that. So, but is there anything else you guys want to say in terms of predictions before we move on to Q&A? No, we good. I think we covered a lot. So.
Wait. I just don't want.
Oh man,
have one more.
No stone unturned. Let's go.
It's too much pressure. Oh, the one thing we didn't talk about was how like Nintendo Online will look like. Voice chat. Are they gonna do it? Are they gonna? You know what I mean?
Is that a prediction for you, or are you asking us to predict?
I guess I was more asking because I honestly don't know. I hope they have it.
I don't think so.
Ugh.
Although I wish it was there.
I think it's going to be more conceivable because there's going to be a lot more RAM on the system, and you know they might be able to pull off a seamless operating system while still having other features in there, right? Like for example, like on PlayStation, you can put up a party chat, right, while still jumping back and forth between games. So I think there's a better chance. I hope that I hope they just forget about the mobile app. Like I think that sucks. So I don't know. I'm 50-50 on it.
I'm going to be optimistic, just for the sake of wishful thinking, I guess. I think the main issue for Nintendo is they're worried about who's going to be talking to kids and that sort of stuff. I think they've, you know, as far as like their moral and family ethic, I think they're terrified of that. And, you know, there's been articles about, I mean, hell, look at all the stuff people were making in Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sure you guys remember. You know,
the Burning Man penis dude.
The Burning Man penis dudes. Like
Crocs on a
that
cross.
right there, blowing up all over like the internet and Twitter is exactly why Nintendo is scared of voice chat on their console. But I'm going to be hopeful. It's under new leadership now. What I'd actually like to see, and maybe you guys think I'm crazy for this, instead of them implementing their own system on it, I'd love to see Nintendo actually like partner with a company like Discord to bring Discord to their console. I think Discord's great. So many
Discord or something.
Was that? Oh, did they?
Didn't they this year?
I don't know. I'm not aware of that.
Did you say like who did what with Discord?
I thought Sony bought a part of them.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's true, but even if it is, does that mean that they wouldn't do anything? I mean, they're helping with the Zelda movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's still you can still use it on Xbox. So yeah, I guess I don't know.
Right. So I mean, if you can use it on Xbox, then I would love that though. If they had like an integrated Discord chat and like it works the same way it does on PC.
Nintendo.
Like,
I'm saying like
background.
Nintendo doesn't like Sony. I'm not saying Sony wouldn't let it happen.
Oh,
I'm saying Nintendo's bitter against them. So I think.
I mean, they work so well with Microsoft, so I don't know.
They wouldn't want to use a platform that's getting Sony profit.
I
guess that's the problem, though.
Never officially use Blu-ray discs.
Right, exactly.
I think if any company is going to be really bitter with Sony, it's going to be Microsoft, considering like those ongoing court battles with Sony, trying to block them at every turn with insane arguments as to why they. I mean, whether or not you feel Microsoft should acquire Activision is a whole conversation, but like some of Sony's reasoning behind it was a little bit silly. Their tactics that I think Microsoft is probably fed up. If anything, I feel like Microsoft would be like, hey, well, Nintendo will help you build a chat network that's got really strong parental control capabilities and protections on it. I just think Nintendo would probably be better off if they partnered with a company that has a really good resume for that, and Discord's a great one.
Yeah. I do want to move on just because it's getting late.
Yep.
And we could, in theory, go on forever. So I want to get to the chat. There were some cool things said there. So guys, we're going to try and do 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. If you guys have to step out early, just let me know. But I am trying to wrap things up here. Captain Doge has said something cool that I appreciated. There we go. So Captain Doge earlier suggested, what if they outsourced the multiplayer out? This is in reference to Metroid Prime 4. What if they outsourced the multiplayer to another studio? Retro has all the time to work on an amazing single player while they just have to supervise the multiplayer. And from another studio, like I think that's conceivable, right? Like as we talked about earlier, like a lot of Nintendo games are a collaborative efforts between multiple different studios. So theoretically, yeah, like it's possible. If they already have a build, an engine in place, and they could oversee that. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to the point of as long as Nintendo's willing to put in the resources to make it happen, it can happen. Now, is that their vision? We don't know. We know so little about Prime 4, so we'll see.
That was one of my thoughts of why Metroid Prime 4 was taking so long, is either the grand scope of it, the polish, the possibility of it being cross-gen, which is likely, or it's got this extra mode that it's, Retro Studios or whomever possibly is putting a lot of effort into, and that's this online versus mode that's kind of ambitious and different, and kind of a second game that works alongside Splatoon that kind of keeps Metroid in the conversation constantly.
Do you think there's people from the Splatoon team that might be helping with that, and that's part of why it got delayed so much, because they were focusing on Splatoon 3 for much of the time?
I wouldn't.
Hard to say.
I'll tell you that the Splatoon team thing crossed my mind, but I
feel like that team's always at work on Splatoon, though. Like they always
that or Animal Crossing.
Yeah, and like they're constantly new updates and stuff for Splatoon, new Splatfest, everything. I don't know when they'd have time.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of like was my point. Like that's kind of maybe why it was delayed. Like if they were relying on it. Just for the
Side Order still hasn't come out yet. It's really interesting how Side Order has had this long of a window between reveal and release.
Yeah.
That's the Splatoon 3 DLC for those that are not aware. By the way, I predict that that's not going to get delayed. They will come out next year in the first half. Not that that's
better.
Another prediction in there.
Yeah. I also predict that Mario vs. Donkey Kong will still come out in February, and it will not change its price. I also predict that Princess Peach Showtime will still come out in March. Oh, and also Another Code Recollection still coming out in January. Yeah.
Didn't you specify at the beginning of this that we're doing predictions of anything that isn't confirmed?
Yeah, I'm just having fun. Let me have.
All right. I'll let you have fun.
Actually,
who let you have fun?
Yeah,
who let Andres have fun?
Not you, apparently. I will say though, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD was rated, so maybe that's coming out early summer. But anyway,
True.
Back to the chat. There's a couple super chats here that happened earlier. So Taker610 with a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Said, I still think Metroid Prime 4 and the Switch 2 are joined at the hip. For that reason, I think we get the reveal in January because in February it's Metroid Prime 4 full reveal time. It's one of those things where, hey, I will humor the idea. I'm open to the idea. I'm not going to predict it. I'm not going to believe it until more compelling evidence presents itself. But I do see what you're saying, though, at least with the point of Prime 4 and Switch 2 kind of lining up together. Like, I think whenever we see multiple games for Switch 2, Prime 4 will be in that teaser trailer, right? Like, if we have the equivalent to that first look
but at the same
Switch,
time, Prime 4 is coming to Switch still. I still think that.
Sure.
I
think we're on the same
Which I don't
page.
know if he's implying by saying that it's tied to the hip with Switch 2 that it's not coming for Switch 1.
Well,
but if he is implying that, I disagree.
Yeah. I don't know if he is.
I think he might be implying that it's going to be revealed. I took it as it will be revealed alongside the reveal of Switch 2. That's kind of how I was interpreting it.
I mean, and I do like the idea. Yeah. You remember how with that Switch teaser, right? Back in October 2016, we saw a 3D Mario. People were like, "Oh, is that real?" Right? And of course it was real, but there was a little. So we may get that for Prime 4.
Sure.
That'd be kind of fun. So I at least that part I agree with. Reveal timing, I hope you're right. Even though I think maybe summer. I don't know. Sometime we'll see, but sometime 2024, I think it'll happen. I have another super chat here from Sam who talks about games. Thank you for super chat, buddy. Sam says, in what ways do you think the next 3D Zelda will more so combine open world and linear Zelda? Maybe a linear story, even more improved dungeons, etc. So, I mean, feel free, if any of you guys have some ideas on this, feel free to jump in.
Go
ahead.
Who's first?
No,
I was just going to say.
Come on,
I think we're going to get closer to more traditional dungeons. Obviously, Nintendo heard a big cry for it after Breath of the Wild. That was one of my biggest complaints with Breath of the Wild. And I think they got a couple steps closer with Tears of the Kingdom. Especially, obviously, the boss fights in Tears of the Kingdom are, they're unique to each dungeon. They're fantastic. They're very epic. The journeys to the dungeons were really epic. The dungeons themselves, while having more of a dungeon vibe than Breath of the Wild, were still very minimal. It was still go here, do this, go here, do this, go here, do this, go here, do this, boss. So I think we're going to get closer and closer to traditional dungeons. We're going to see more of that hybrid, old meets new, perfected.
I agree. I think I was arguing in the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom that we would see some linear Zelda elements make it in, unique dungeons, unique bosses, a more dynamic story. Maybe dynamic's the wrong word, but a little bit more of a story happening concurrently with the player. And so those things did happen. And while I know a lot of Zelda fans are kind of no, we want more linear elements, I think there was a better marriage of that in Tears of the Kingdom. And I agree with you. I think that the next Zelda game, it's going to be its own thing, but I think they will find ways to better marry some of those really cool linear elements into the open air format.
Paul, did you have something you want to say too?
Similar to what Cameron was saying, looking at the way Eiji Aonuma and the other developers that were talking about Tears of the Kingdom, especially right before the game came out. Does it have dungeons? Yes, it has dungeons. Dungeons are back. Part of that dungeon idea sort of open to interpretation of what is the modern dungeon and how do you modernize classic dungeons, because those are two different things. And I think Nintendo truly felt, we brought dungeons back, but just did it in a new way. And then once the dust has settled and several months go by, which at this point they have on Tears of the Kingdom and how fans are reacting to it, no, we actually wanted this. And then in a new interview, why would you want that again? But enough fans are talking, and overall Nintendo is about moving the series forward and not necessarily harking on nostalgia. They care more about sales. 2 of the Zelda games did 1/3 of the whole sales in the franchise history together. So that's kind of the direction. But I do think they care enough to try to incorporate what's some of what we wanted before a little bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, the next Zelda open-ended game and probably open air concept and stuff like that. But when it comes to some progression, perhaps more designated story time, perhaps more.
Don't retell the imprisoning war 5 times.
Oh my gosh. They could have shown that 5 different ways instead of the same perspective.
Like a different perspective would have been better.
I like that, a different perspective, yeah. But like it's interesting because in those interviews they talk about like a more like limited and restrained experience. And like when I think of like dungeons in Zelda, it's interesting that they would kind of use that to describe the old dungeons, because when you think of the shrines, like shrines take away and limit things from you depending on the shrine. Like one, you can't climb everything in a shrine. You have that completely taken away from you. 2, they've got shrines essentially in Tears of the Kingdom where you start from scratch, you know, and you've got to make your way through and build up your arsenal. And those are some of the most popular ones. So they do limit you.
Well, they did that in Breath of the Wild, but just for that one area.
Right. So I think it is possible to have those more linear traditional mechanics within a dungeon while the game is still open world, do things your own way. I don't know. I don't think they have to be 2 separate things. And I think Nintendo knows
that. I'm glad you said that, because I think the best way to do it is to like have like how in Breath of the Wild you went to that one island and it was like its completely own thing where you started from scratch. Like have areas in an open world Zelda game where you go and it's like another part of the world where it is completely linear and its own quest line, but that's just like one side quest on its own.
It's a pocket.
Yeah, a pocket.
There we go. Zelda has pockets. Yeah. I will say one neat little thing that they improved in Tears of the Kingdom, or at least to me, it's a big improvement. It's so like the Divine Beasts in Breath of the Wild, they were their own loaded zones, right? Like, yes, you could see them in the overworld, but when you enter them, that's it. You can't like jump out back and forth seamlessly. Like you have to load in and out. In Tears of the Kingdom, all the dungeons are in the world seamlessly, right? There's no like loading screen or pause. Like you can fall out or fly back in. And so I really like that. But I'll also say that I kind of see your point with having like some limitations is cool, because sometimes when you're given limitations, it forces you to be creative, you know, within those limitations, right? So I think there's a balance between having freedom and limitation, right? So, and I think they can create more interesting gameplay scenarios with an interesting combination of both. So maybe Nintendo will experiment more with that. But I do also think, like, you look at the Wind Temple and the Lightning Temple, I would say those are the 2 better dungeons of the 4. Well, of the 4 main dungeons in the game. And so, and even though they're very different, I would say the Lightning Temple is probably the closest to any prior Zelda dungeon, but it still has that openness. Like you're locked into this big ass pyramid, but you're in the pyramid and it's like, okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. You figure it out. Right. So I kind of liked that they did it in that way. Yeah, we'll see what the future holds.
All right. Now is the point in the podcast where everybody in chat gets to make a wish. Oh, you missed it. Sorry. It was 11:11 for like half a second. Hopefully you made your wish quick.
We did miss it.
It would have been such a perfect thing for this podcast.
Yeah. Let's see here. Retro Cheats added me and said, for 2024, I believe no Switch 2 and the holiday game will be a new Donkey Kong game. Could be 2D or 3D. I'll be happy with Donkey Kong. I'll say that.
Wait, are you reading the thing? It's not on the screen.
Well, okay.
Oh, you don't have to. Sorry, I just.
No.
You're good.
I have 2 different chats, and I can't always find the comments. Yeah.
No, I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry. Now I feel bad.
How dare you? Ruined
You're
everything.
Ruining this.
Anyway, actually, I did find it. So
hey.
Yeah. Can't guarantee I'll find everything though. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much to say, but okay. Like, I think we'll all be happy with a Donkey Kong game. But I think,
he's glad he paid for that.
Actually, you know what? Let me ask you guys: if we don't get Switch 2 next year, are you gonna be disappointed?
Yes.
Not really.
Software-wise, there's so many franchises that exist that have yet to even see it an entry. A new Golden Sun, a Star Fox game, bringing about Punch Out, having something called Nintendo Extreme Sports Racing, where it's a hybrid game that incorporates.
Dude, I want all that stuff on the Switch too. I don't want it on the Switch 1. I'll be disappointed that all those games aren't coming to Switch 2.
Yeah.
Think of it as maybe the revival of them on this 140 million selling platform, so that they can succeed later on.
No, I agree with Paul. I actually agree with Paul. I wouldn't be disappointed because Switch has become Switch has usurped SNES as my favorite Nintendo console because such an amazing library, so many great games. And like I said earlier in the show, I think Nintendo learned a valuable lesson with the Switch, that when you launch with a strong year with big games and you continue to feed just a strong lineup of games, you're going to have a success. Power's great, cool console innovation is great, but a console is only as good as the software that it has. So I expect if we're not getting Switch until 2025, it's because of an unforeseen delay in its starting lineup, and they want to launch it strong. And I'm like, go for it, release it later, launch it strong, give me a new Mario Kart.
I would want them to launch it in 2025 if that was the case as well. I would want them to launch it strong, but I still would be disappointed that they weren't launching it strong next year.
Yeah, I think my thing is that I just don't it's not that I don't expect it, but I'm just kind of the mindset right now where I'm like, oh, Switch 2 next year, that'd be nice, but I don't know. I don't think I've buckled down on the idea that it's coming out next year, because like I said, I'm thinking it's either holiday or early 2025. So either way,
gotta believe, Josie. Come on.
But if you believe, you get let down.
Whoa, Josie.
I feel like if Switch was not planned for next year, and this might be kind of a dumb thing, but I don't know. My gut just tells me that even though Nintendo typically has a small presence for the most part at the Game Awards, other than like Smash reveals, I feel like we would have seen something. I feel like we've got a lot of the big stuff out of the way. We're seeing some of the other third-party stuff like Deca Police and the Professor Layton getting delayed into 2025. I imagine those are going to be cross-gen games, is what I predict for those. I don't know. It feels like we're winding down. I feel like there would have been a hype announcement for 2024 for the Switch. And I mean, there is. Thousand Year Door is getting a remake. It's one of my favorite games of all time.
Right.
Easily the best Paper Mario
game. 80% of the currently announced Nintendo published titles for next year are remakes or remasters.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so historically speaking, that suggests that they're transitioning.
Yeah. It feels like a transition period. So I imagine if it's 2025, it's because of unforeseen delays.
Yeah, but I also don't. I'll tell you that I think there would, God forbid this happens, right? But I think barring a global catastrophe, it's not going to be delayed. And so what I mean by that is, I don't think software is going to be the issue, because as we've seen, Nintendo's just been sitting on games for the last 2 years. Prime Master was just sitting on a shelf for a year and a half, right? Mario Wonder had an indefinite development cycle, right? Tears of the Kingdom, they told us they were basically done March 2022. They released it 14 months later. So I think Nintendo's just in a place where they're just sitting on games. They have more games that are ready than they have months in the year. So I don't think there's a concern about them being ready, at least in terms of software, right? And so you could, I know back in 2016, like we heard from what was it, Tatsumi Kimishima at the time, maybe him, one of the Nintendo presidents, that the Switch, they would have wanted it holiday 2016, but they wanted to have the lineup ready, right? I think that has a lot to do with Breath of the Wild and getting that version ready. That was different. Nintendo was so behind the development cycle back then. They were never really ready to get things out on time. There was a lot of droughts. So I don't think it would be a software problem, maybe a hardware problem, right? But you look at how there's not going to be a Tears of the Kingdom this year. There's not going to be a Mario movie this year. And this year is going to be the third year of trending downward sales. So if they don't have Switch 2 coming out in some time in the next fiscal year, or at least for a big part of it, we're for sure going to see a fourth year of declining sales if it doesn't hit enough time in the next fiscal year. So I mean, from my perspective, is Nintendo would literally be just saying, okay, we're just gonna have a shit year, if they don't come out with the system. Now they've done that before, but I don't expect that. But we shall see. These are just our predictions. Anyways, I think that pretty much sums it up. Is there anything else you guys would like to address before we call it a night?
I tell you how they fixed Star Fox.
Yes.
All right. I love the traditional Star Fox. Give me on-rail shooter with open world terrain, all range mode kind of stuff. I'm good. Just make a new traditional Star Fox game. But I think so much of the world has evolved into it's got to be more than just that to make us pay $60, $70. So actually, I'm a pretty good fan of Ratchet and Clank. I think the Ratchet and Clank games are solid. So I see Star Fox going forward in kind of that direction. You have an on-ground, intergalactic, in-between space stations, traveling Star Fox title where you fly in the Great Fox in between, or you depart and you go out with your R-Wing to these different planets. You land. You're on land as Fox. You talk on the comms and stuff like that with Slippy Peppy.
Seamless traversal like Starlink?
Was that?
Seamless traversal between space and planets like
Traversal
Starlink?
like Starlink, yes, where
Okay.
you land on it.
I'm on board.
And Star Fox has such an awesome. Anytime you mix like mutants or animals or talking animal humanoids, like it's cool. It's good enough for kids. It's cool enough for adults. Like there's a fine line in between it. You have some RPG light elements where Fox upgrades his blaster, his traversal, more ninja
Yeah,
guy.
Ratchet and Clank does that too.
Quick, and then you hop online and you play versus mode with other people. Imagine just going through these all-range mode missions with 3 other people playing in their R-Wings or a Landmaster and below where it lands. And that's just a fantastic modern take of Star Fox game where you're taking a little bit of that action that kind of Zelda is known for, but not as big of a world. And you're still sticking true to what the series is known and loved for, which is flying. And you pair it with the Netflix animated Star Fox series. Bam! That's this healthy merger, I think, of you're really doing Star Fox some justice, because why do so many of us love it so much despite there only being a few games in the series, only a couple maybe being really top tier. They left an impact on us for some reason, Not like Zelda where there's a dozen great Zelda games. Mario where there's
It's a little hard to hear you, Paul.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I thought it was just me.
There you go.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, was most of that not heard?
Trying to look
The
focused.
last 30 seconds.
Oh, really?
You're like, damn, that was a good 30 seconds.
It sounded like you were underwater, like in a wind tunnel underwater.
Yeah.
And I just revealed what the Zelda thing was too during that time.
You
Damn it!
son of a bitch.
Ah,
So,
I really wanted to hear about the Nintendo Lego set with the tree.
But-
Paul, I agree with you though. One of my good friends, I always talk about what I want in Star Fox, and I described it how you opened up. I'm like, I want them to kind of do a Nintendo take on Ratchet and Clank.
Now you're underwater.
Oh boy,
might be the blue
Yeah.
marine from Starbucks.
it's contagious.
They should
Right.
have. Star Fox Submarine. Yeah.
Star Fox Submarine. No,
They
but like,
had something like that in Zero.
The blue
Good
marine.
diver.
yeah.
Yeah.
Starbucks.
But yeah, no, I'd love to see the Nintendo take on a Ratchet and Clank type game, but with like a bigger emphasis on space battles and dogfights than we get in Ratchet and Clank, and like kind of an epic story. I'd love to see these characters in like this grand, almost space opera. Maybe there's some dramatic moments, but it's make the story funny.
Oh, Star
you know?
Fox in a drama, love it. Let's do
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It works so well with toys and marketing and everything. Even if you didn't have like a movie,
A Star Fox movie.
a Star
Yeah.
Fox
Oh,
movie.
Like imagine it kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy style. Like
Exactly. This is Star Fox is one of the
Yeah.
coolest things they've been sitting on. For some reason, they just can't nail the games right enough. And then maybe this was the 30-second thing that I was saying, in addition to what the Zelda thing was. Oh dang! I just said it and I lost it.
the Nintendo Ninjas are wiping.
such
your
a
mind.
tease.
Oh,
Such
I'll
a
remind
tease.
you. You were saying the release date of the next Zelda thing.
Right. You were
was
saying
it
you were saying it was Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD, right?
It's
Right,
really
or
what Star Fox.
K60.
Oh, yeah, that's what. No, I'm not slipping. It is what why do so many of us hold Star Fox so near and dear? Because unlike Metroid, where it's got every entry in the Metroid game has been fantastic, 9 to 10 out of 10. You know, maybe save for Other M, which was not bad, but just not of that high quality.
Right.
It's not like
It's the low
or
point of the series.
Zelda, Donkey Kong, Mario, dozens of games. Star Fox has only had several, and only a couple or a few of them at most have been great, but we all love it for some reason. That's the impact, that's the power behind that franchise. And if they just took it in this right direction, which I think seems like you all kind of agree, like that would be huge.
Totally.
Yeah. I don't want to dwell too much because I am trying to wind down the show, but I will say that I think one of the reasons why Star Fox has suffered is just in the past, Nintendo would outsource Star Fox, right? Star Fox has been outsourced a lot. Assault, Namco, Adventure, well, Rare. I mean, it's sort of, you know what I mean? It's a little weird because they're moving to Microsoft, but even like Star Fox Zero, Platinum Games. Now, outsourcing isn't necessarily a bad thing, like a Metroid Dread, right? It just depends if they have the right people overseeing the project and the right staffing is there. And I think Nintendo's gotten better at that over the years. So hopefully the next time they do it, be it outsourced or not, they get it right.
Yeah.
Stop making Star Fox 64. Like, go big.
Oh yeah,
go big. Innovate.
Well,
like they're doing.
They did Star Fox
Mario
Command. That Star Fox Command was definitely new.
Sure.
Star Fox Assault, actually, I think Star Fox Assault is super slept on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that said, I think, did I miss anything? Oh, okay.
Someone at the very end said, "Do you think the Switch will eventually outsell the PS2?"
All right, Sam with a super chat. Thank you for that. This will be quick. We're not going to make it a big topic. Yes.
I hope so.
I think so too. I think if Nintendo, it's insane how popular the Switch is. There's been 0 price drops. If they release Switch 2 and they do a price drop on the OG Switch, people are going to pick up Switch Lites. People are going to pick up. Yeah.
Especially if they do the Switch Mini, which I know they probably won't, but that would also.
You said doo-doo.
I did.
Yeah.
What if the Switch Mini has a 2-inch screen?
2 inches is more than enough, Paul.
Yeah.
More than enough. Not like just enough. Like at 1.7, you're fine. Hypothetically.
Yeah, so it looks like we all agree. Yeah, Switch is gonna beat PS2. We're all fanboys. But I think there's a really good chance.
Transitions.
Bless you, choice.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. It's been fun, guys. Thank you for coming on.
Are you gonna let everyone plug their channel or no? Or are you just gonna?
No. Why would I do that? I'm a terrible content creator. So with that said, Gamer Classic, what are you working on?
Like I said, I am. Whoops! I just lost my. Hold on. Sorry. Go to someone else real quick.
Josie, how about you? I think you're about to put out a video that
I am.
Are in.
Josie,
yes.
Whoa!
Yeah, Andres is in my video that I'm putting out tomorrow. So if you like him, come on over. It's just about like our favorite games of 2023 with a bunch of other content creators. It should be really fun. I talk about the Nintendo Switch over there and give my fun young opinion. So if you guys like different opinions and you don't want to scream at me, there we go.
No, most people here are reasonable, except for
let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just Josie Woods, my name. But thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's been a pleasure. Guys, her channel is linked in the description below. Everyone's channels are linked in the description below. Paul, I linked both your Twitter and your YouTube channel because I wasn't sure what to put. But yeah, Paul, how about you? Yeah, got anything else you want to talk about?
If you like video game sales or analyzing the industry, then on Twitter/X, including one of the questions that's asked about Nintendo Switch sales and is it going to top PS2, I talk a lot there and break down things and give good reasoning, I think, as to why things would probably unfold the way they do. And on YouTube, it's a variety of content. Sometimes, unboxing videos, and sometimes what else I do, which is like martial arts tutorial in real life. And sometimes I share some of that on YouTube too.
Yeah. Sometimes you make videos about Dragon Ball. Or you
Dragon Ball. Yeah.
I love that video you made. I know it was a while ago, but he has a video where he's basically Goku. Yeah.
Sequel's coming out next year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah. But what comes out first? The sequel to your Goku video, or Dragon Ball Super Season 2? That may never happen.
Oh, jeez, my video. Sadly,
Probably.
no
'Cause
one's looking forward to my video.
we have
except for me.
that what is it, Dragon Ball Daima thing that's coming out.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
take, because instead of continuing the manga with Super, they're like, "Bloop, let's go and do something. different,"
Yeah.
which I'll
I mean-
watch. I love Dragon Ball, but
Yeah. I'll give it a chance. I think Super's still gonna happen. I think it's just more of a waiting game.
Yeah.
At least they're getting it right with the games though. Sparking Zero, I'm so excited for that. Yeah.
Looks good.
That'd be sick.
Except for two,
Yeah.
Tenkaichi, right?
Yeah, it's Tenkaichi 4, in case
Yeah.
you guys don't know. So that's pretty epic. But Daddy Jake Randall Jr. Boy, man.
You could I'll keep it really short. You can find me YouTube, Jake Randall, Twitter /X, Jake Randall, OnlyFans, 2-inch Destroyer. Very different content, but some people might like it.
Yeah. It's really great. I love his OnlyFans. Big fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, huge. More than 2 inches huge. It's great. So it's not linked in the description below, but you can find his YouTube channel there. I'm sure if you continue looking through his videos, watching every one as good as they are, you will eventually find that.
Watch every live stream,
Fake.
especially the 12-hour ones.
Right.
Just let it keep going. You'll know.
Yeah, exactly. So with that said, Cameron, are you ready to tell us what you're?
I'm ready to roll. Yeah. First off, thanks so much for having me on the show again. I always have so much fun. It's cool to be able to meet you guys and talk with you guys about Nintendo. I always get so excited about Nintendo talk. But yeah, you guys can find me at Gamebird Classic. It's going to be a little bit quiet over the next few days for the holidays, but I do have some little YouTube shorts planned, as well as a couple Nintendo videos for next week and a new episode of Gamebird Weekly next Friday. Andres, he's one of the best, if not the best, Nintendo YouTubers out there. Let's get this guy to 50K subs.
Someday.
He's so close.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get him there.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Paul Gale Network. I'll appreciate that.
And I also want to
It was
say
more than enough.
Nintendo Squish 2024. I think we can all
Nintendo
agree.
Squish.
Nintendo
Yes, that
Squish,
is
baby.
that's it. Oh, actually, if you think about it, that could be the Switch Lite revision. It's like it's not the Switch 2.
Nintendo
It's
Squish.
Squish.
It works
Exactly.
in so many ways.
It's a smaller Switch. It's Nintendo Squish down. Yeah.
It
But
happened.
yeah, guys.
We figured it
What?
out.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally. If there's any prediction that comes true, it's the Nintendo Squish. Like that's my prediction. That's not my prediction. But anyways,
I love you,
thank
chat.
you all. It's been fun. We'll see you soon.
This isn't a peace sign. It's
Care.
just 2-inch.
All right.
You're supposed to end right there.
Good night.
Are we